It's interesting that it's not up yet. Here we go. What's up,
Yay.
everybody? It's Grunie. Welcome to the Wednesday Sound Shop Vlogs live show. With me here today is my friend Emmanuel. Other
What's
way.
up, peoples?
Yep. It's
Uh,
hard. It's harder than it looks.
yeah,
Yeah, there we go. Um, so
two
if you're
hands. I'm
not
counting.
familiar with Sound Shop Vlogs, like, comment, subscribe. We're a production company based in New Jersey. A whole bunch of people working for us. We do these show. I do a show every week. We do a show on Friday. We have lots of vlogs from back when we were allowed to work and there were events. So check those out. So for those guys who don't know you, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll launch into talking about all the good stuff.
Okay, so yes, people. My name is Emmanuel Howell Griffin. Most people call me Manny for short because a lot of people don't like to go deep into the name, and then there's like some weird stories. Like I come across another person named Emmanuel. It's like, oh, you name this, you name that. Okay, we have to decide like who's gonna be who because we both can't answer at the same time. So it's like whatever. So most people just call me Manny, or like some people call me E-Man for short. And so I am a front of house slash monitor engineer. I also do tech work. Um, I've been doing audio since professionally since 2012. Started off as a tech in the theater, back out where I'm originally from, because I have a dual citizenship. I'm both of U.S. nationality, and also I am a citizen of the Federation of Saint Kitts and Nevis. So I used to do a lot of work in the islands as an audio guy, working with bands. I've done like plays and like couple corporate stuff, like talking head stuff, and so moved here to Florida in 2016, just to push further my career. I went to Full Sail University. I studied show production and concert touring, and then in 2018 I went back out on the road. I did artists such as Rat. I've done Maxi Priest, who is my current monitor gig, as well as I do fill in for a good buddy of mine. His name is Chris Owens. He does Black, so I fill in over at Black, and I've done monitors for like this amazing band from LA called Hablo Brown. Just get the pronunciation right, and I pick up one-offs here and there, and still progressing. I'm 28 right now, and just doing everything audio wise. I'm also a musician. Started off as a musician before I got into professional sound. So I was a keyboard player slash MD to an extent, and yeah, now I'm just doing live sound, and I'm making things sound good for people and for artists and for audience, and doing everything audio. So yay, fun times, concert life. It's what I
Yeah.
love, is what I love to make, what I love to do, what I love to make sound good, and it's just my passion. Like I go very very deep, almost spiritually into this, because it's like I love to see the way how the audience reacts to their favorite song, their favorite artist. I love to see the way how musicians like go into their zone. Even for me, who is a musician, I love to be in that zone, and I love to make musicians be able to go into that zone where they can bring out their true essence and give the fans what they want. Um, there's another band that I worked with just as a one-off with a buddy of mine called Malcolm Gill, a phenomenal engineer. We did Common Kings together on a one-off opening. I think they were like co-headlining or opening up for the Dirty Heads here here in Orlando. I think this was like 2019, like mid springtime, if I'm not mistaken. The dates are just going over my head, but
They
yeah.
all blend together after a while.
Tell me about it, brother. Tell me about it.
So cool. Well, if you guys couldn't tell, we have another audio freak like me here. So, do you want to dive into your show file first, or do you just want to talk some shop? or do you want
Uh,
to show the file and we'll base everything off of that?
yeah, we could dive into the file
All
and
right,
get it over with.
so here we go. So this
Um,
is tell us about what we're looking at.
so we are looking at a show that I did with this band from New York. They are a backing band in the genre known as soca music. It's very high energy, uh, goes from like mid level pace to very fast pace, very dynamic. And so for this particular show, I was doing monitors on an SD10. The band is called Request Band, and they back up like a couple of some big name artists in the soca music industry, like Patrice Roberts, Farmer Nappy, Lyrical, uh, just to name a few. And so in this particular show, like it was so dynamic because we were doing like four artists basically. Like one would come off after the next, and so um you know different fields. And this with this band and their monitor setup, it's so unique because they go between a mixture of, all right, this guy's on ears, this guy's on ears, and these guys are on wedges, and the vocals are downstage wedges, sorry, and side fills. And it's crazy. So a heavy count, because we have like two keyboard players both playing at least a minimum of two keyboards. That's like four stereo lines basically. Full drum kit, tracks, which the tracks rig comes out to about 6 to 8 lines basically. And then they had some drum trigger stuff, but we weren't using that. Um, and yeah,
Real
so
quick, actually, do you remember who the vendor was by chance for that show?
yes, it's a vendor. I think by the name of Q Sound.
That might have been our console. That might have been the K Sound SD10. Uh,
Probably because I know
yeah,
they had.
because they
I know
rent
they had.
that from us for a while.
Yeah, I know they had a minimum of like 3 10s because I think the production desk was a 10, the front of house desk was a 10, and my monitor desk was a 10.
Yeah,
If
it
I'm
might
not
have been
mistaken.
one of ours.
But yeah,
Um,
pretty
Small
cool
world.
guys.
So,
Yeah.
so where do you want me? I'm navigating this one. Where do you want me to start and talk through?
Okay, so let's go. You know what? Let's dive straight into the meat of the matter, where I start with, which is usually my vocals. So let's back over to the vocals page. It should
Let's
be
see. I think I got
right
it here.
side.
Yep.
Yeah, right there.
Cool.
So with my vocal structure, right? And I'll kind of take you guys through a regular day with me doing monitors, right? So first thing first, I reach on site, I talk to my techs, whoever is the on-site techs. We have a discussion. I introduce myself. I set the right temperature, working wise.
Sure.
Say, hey, this is what we're gonna be doing, and we go over like the input list. We go over like RF stuff. We go over like what wedges and side fields, which this was like all acoustic stuff, so high Q and stuff like that. So we go through that process. I had microphones were ULXDs with the regular 58 capsules. Also had some PSM 900s for the ears. And so we go through this process. We go through the daily spiel. I try to set the pace where I never want to become that quote unquote that dick of a monitor guy, or make everybody's day like a living hell. So I try to like, you know, talk to people nicely, you know, s- treat people the way how I want to be treated, so that way
Yeah.
we all can go through the day smoothly. Because it's a long day for us all. It's a festival at the end of the day, so they're there since like morning. I'm just coming in as the engineer. I'm not trying to make anybody's day any harder than what it is, because I know how it is as a festival tech to go and have to deal with multiple engineers and go through that process. So yeah, we don't try to make anybody's day hard. So after that whole spiel, I walk out on my stage, and I proceed with getting my microphones together. I set my gain level, and I ring out my microphones. I make sure nothing's feeding back, and I work with the tech. If I'm on the deck, I have them at my console. You know, we scoop out whatever frequencies we need, and I adjust whatever EQs. So with my vocal structure here, especially for a lot of these, is like it's very generic. I start with whoever my first vocal mic is, and I get like a generic like sound which is comfortable for my ears, and what I feel is comfortable for them. So I usually do my regular stuff like I high pass to a certain frequency. I think I'm usually high passing about anywhere between 100 to maybe 120 at max, maybe a little deeper than
You
that.
got 130 on these, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all tailored to the situation, the person's vocal. Because even though I check it with my vocal, by the time they come in, I know exactly what I want them to hear. That boost their vocal, or boomy or stuff like that. I cut out a little bit like 250 to clean up some mud. And then for me with the 58s, and this is something that, it's kind of textbook with it. I've picked it up along the way. I apply them every day, so I usually try and take out like around starting with maybe 2.5, and then work my way up. So there's like cuts at like 2.5, maybe a little bit at 5, and a little bit at 8. But those are just my fundamentals, and they're all subject to change. By the way, like nothing here is what it is at the end
Yeah.
of the day. If I have to change it, I'll change it because it's the diff. I might be on a different wedge system per show because this is the festival. So these were just all tailored towards that wedge and to how loud my vocalists on stage were, to the point where if these are the frequencies I have to take out initially, I take them out and then I slowly kind of pull them back in. So if you're looking at like around like that 5 areas where initially at first it was a lot more deeper, but then when they started to sing and they started to talk, stuff like that, I gradually like brought it back up, and I pulled back some of my gain structure, and like made sure that it was loud enough for them to hear, but it wasn't gonna cause me any issues.
Yeah, I'm
And
saying I'm looking at your gains right now. 34.5 on Digico is like on a 58 is like that's I think where everybody ends up usually.
yeah, and it's so crazy because I was even talking to somebody about it where like this is what I usually do like on the input gain side, but then I've been kind of trying to think about applying like parallel comping into a monitor situation, just so I could like back off the input gain, but then I still get like a loud level. So it's in its experimental phase. If feel free anybody who's in the comments to try it. I'm definitely going to try it, and if it works for me, I will do it. If it doesn't, it's just one other thing that I won't do. But
I'd say be
yeah,
careful of the noise floor you're bringing up with that too.
exactly, and that's the other issue with it. So it's like one of those things was like, maybe I'll try it, but it's definitely like stuff to think about. So
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, most of my vocal chain starts this way, and then I work my way back down to the top of my input list. So after I've done the vocals and I've got the stage together, I know where everything is, which is another thing I didn't touch on. To everybody that's in the chat, any anybody that's doing monitors, please. This is something that you don't ever want to happen. It's happened to me before, and it's something you learn from. Always check where your sources are, even before you hit the stage. Send pink noise to every output that you are using, whether it be ears, whether it be wedges, side fills, just so that they all are exactly where you need them to be. Because you don't want to be in a situation where I have been in a situation before, where I have depended on a tech to tell me where the stuff was, and where what he said it wasn't exactly where it was, and I had a weird show happen to me that way. And so now, after learning from that mistake, where it wasn't like a haywire mistake, I figured it out, but it was like I having to figure it out in the show, or like with the first act. And it's like
Yeah.
one of the situations you don't want to be in. So please check all your outputs ahead of time. as
Yeah, even
many
front of
outputs as
house.
you. Exactly. Like checking your outputs is very, very crucial, even
I
before
would
you
be
start.
hard pressed to find a festival, or even when I'm the system tech, I'd be hard
Hmm.
pressed to name a time where I haven't asked somebody to, flash their to pink their outputs before I unmute if we're still
Exactly.
getting signal. Yeah.
Exactly. Because it's just one of those things you have to make sure, because at the end of the day, like, you don't want to be in that position where, oh, you're freaking out, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be freaking out because it makes the artist freak out. you
Right.
want to you want to be the most consistently calm person, so that way when they look at you, they're like, all right, this guy's got it, so I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about it. Because at the end of the day, like, the artist is so, I don't want to use the term fragile, but they're so in their thoughts about what they're doing, that for them to have to worry about somebody else, it takes them out of
Right.
their center of gravity.
It's an
So
unneeded stress. Yeah.
so yeah, moving forward after that, after you've checked your outputs, I've ring out my stage, I've done all that. We get into sound check, bands on stage, everybody's setting up. I, have my talk back situated. I'm live to everybody, and I go through the process. Now, for me, this is very, very key.
What
Set.
screen should I be on? Do you want me to be on the center one here?
Yeah, we could be right here for now.
Yeah. Sure.
Um, so this is for me, right? Set the temperature of your stage from the get go. And what I mean by the temperature of your stage, I mean set the pace. Be the assertive one who is like, all right, cool. You have it together. You know what you're doing. You're talking to the artist and you're communicating and you're fixing this and fixing that along the way. And so it calms them down. It shows them that you are in control. It shows them that you got your stuff together and they follow your lead. They don't want to be initially like leading you, so you have to take control of that lead, because if they start leading you, it gets all haywire. You get yelled at for this and yelled at for that. Now you gotta set that pace early, right? So with my output section here, right, I have vocals, bass, guitar, drums, which is just like a drum sub setup, um, a blank page, because that was initially a mix that I had that I decided to take out because we weren't using. Stage left keys, stage right keys, side fill. In this case, the side fill and the subs were separate. A lot of the times, this is not usually the case, but for this particular show, these were separate. So, yeah, and then we go into some in-ear stuff. So if you go back up one more page before, we get into like in-ear stuff. So, there's two musicians primarily for this show. Oh, sorry, three musicians primarily for this show that I was using in-ears for, but one of them decided they didn't want to use it, so that's why that mix is muted. So it goes in-ear mix, which that one was for the bass player. Then it goes to the drum in-ear mix, and then it goes to the Ableton text in-ear mix, or tracks as I usually call them. And then when we flip to the other page, it's whenever you're ready. Yeah,
There we go.
it's my tech pack, because I had a patch tech and general tech in general. He works with the band, so me and him have that communication where he's on stage and I get to stay at my console. So that's how we were fixing a lot of problems, especially in this festival scenario. So that was his mix. It's currently turned down, but during the show I had it up. I think I turned it down when I saved the file. And then um, just general effects engines. I think I have these all muted, but a Vox Verb if I need the Vox Verb, because you just never know if that's what happens. And then drum verb definitely, because I do put reverb on in certain cases for my drummer. Like I highlight his toms, I highlight his snare in his in-ear mix alone. I don't send it to anywhere else, just his in-ear
Sure.
mix. And then I have some spear axes just for you know any little small things, and it's stuff that I could change to stereo really quickly. But for this current setup, I kept the mono, and stuff like that. And then uh with the digital platform, which I love about the digital platform, is that I'm doing dual solar busing. We don't really have to necessarily show
Sure.
it, but I have my regular solo, which is like my master fader, and then I have another solo, which is a group. So my master fader is my stereo solo for my in ears, and then my mono solo bus is for just like my outputs, like my wedges, anything wedges goes to that, or side fills, because then I have like a little Q wedge next to me that I am listening to during said show and stuff like that. And yeah, that's basically the output setup for that show.
Cool.
Uh, let's touch the inputs, and we can start from the ground up. So, basic drum setup in this scenario, or somewhat of a basic drum setup: kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, hi hat, uh, two racks, two floors, two overheads, and a drum trigger. But we weren't using the drum trigger. Microphones. We'll talk about that right now in terms of drums. So my microphone setup for this, because we weren't carrying a package. We were using the festival package, but they had like a bunch of different options uniquely, so we were able to like change around a couple of things. So on my kick in, it was a 91. On my kick out, we had a 52, but then we changed it to the D6, which I love the sound of a D6. I'm not knocking a 52, because I would use a 52 any given way, but definitely love the sound of a D6. That attack that you get from the D6 is so unique and pleasant, and it's like I end up having to add more lows to a D6 than I would do a 52, just because the way how the diaphragm of that mic is set up. I end up having to add more lows to a D6 than I would do a 52. So different diaphragm. Snare top, snare bottom is 58. I'm sorry, 57s. I was about to say 58s. My bad. I would use a 58 if that was there, but we had 57s. Um, Hi hat 81, toms all 604s, and then overheads all 81s. And that's basically my go-to to an extent package for most of my drum setups. Occasionally, like I'll play around with like a beta 57 for my top mic, and it's all experimental. I've used 98s before on toms.
Yeah.
It's just mic placement and this type of sound that you're looking for, and what does the job right. In this case, like 604s, do the job the exact way how I want them to do. EQing wise, you don't have to open it. I just speak it out of my head, because it's all fundamental EQs that I use on my drums. Um, Kicks, I'm usually high passing at least 20 hertz out of the kicks, just to get some of that unnecessary rumble, in my opinion, out of the kick. And I usually am boosting, especially on my kick in. I'm usually boosting around between 60 and 70 hertz for the kick in, and then around like 54 and 60 hertz on my kick out. General scoops is like anywhere between 2 to 500, and then I usually do like 5 and 8 on both my ins and outs. Um, just because at 5 and 8, to my ears, is where I get a lot of that attack sound from the kick.
Yeah.
So especially for a kick in where the mic is more inside the drum, I definitely want that attack sound from the kick in. And if I didn't have that kick in mic, I would just you know add more attack to that one microphone, and more of that 5 and 8K to that one microphone, and you know play around with it until I get the kick to really like hit where I need it to hit. And so, um, camping, I do that. Gating for sure, I do that simply because like we're on stage. It's a bunch of open sources. If you're not gating your drums to an at some point, then I don't know what you're doing, because to me, like, gate save lives at the
Yeah.
end of the day. Like, you have so much different variables going on, a bunch of open sources. Like, it's one less thing to worry about. And even if you don't get feedback from your drum microphones, like some people might do, still gate them just as a safety precaution. Or even if you don't like how a gate operates, what I have done, and I've done this on a profile. I've used like the expander function on my drums just to, clean up any bleed, because the way how the expanders work is like it's just a gate set at a high ratio that just cleans up any background noise. So it's like if I have an expander, I use the expander. But in this case, I had gates, so I used the gates. High hat general stuff, I do on a hi hat from my monitor's perspective. High pass it up until probably like 200, 250. You know,
You got 600 on this one, yeah, which is where I'm usually at.
yeah. Oh, 600 in this one. I have to go back and look at that. But it probably was tailored around that situation. Like I said, with this file, it's been a while since I opened the file. To be honest with you
All good.
guys, but muscle memory helps build. So, toms, I do high pass my toms.
Yep.
I high pass them at different frequencies, and I start with first tom. My first time, I usually start anywhere between like 70, 80, and I work my way down the spectrum. And then I do like general scoops on my toms, maybe around like five or so. Um, in this particular file, I wasn't adding anything to that, simply because sometimes less is more, in my opinion. And if if they sound good, even without me having to add frequencies to it, then why do it? Like, if I
Yeah.
have to add them, I will. But if the mic placement is good and the sound and the source is good, I don't have to do it. So, I with this particular file, the mic placement was good, and all I had to do was just take out stuff. So it works for me. Um, then moving forward, and this is very, very weird. I don't know
Am
why
I
my
going to a different layer or am
overheads.
I changing screens?
Yeah, go ahead and change screens real quick to get to where the next set of inputs would be. Let me see. Yes, there we go. So after we move from the drum stuff, we're touching bass. We're touching guitars. We're touching Ableton stuff. So with these guys, as I said, the Ableton rig is very spaced out, and so I have like Ableton perks, Ableton synths, Ableton Vox, and because this was a festival scenario, there was stuff in for live percussions, but we weren't using them, so they were just there for some weird reason.
Sure.
I have to try to remember why. Anyway, bass. Again, it's a regular bass DI, and I know a lot of us tend to feel sometimes that you know don't do anything to a base DI. It's just a DI, but I still feel like if it's coming off of the head and the head is not, doing what I want it to do, I'll still take out a little bit of some of that rumble just to save face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like it all depends on their head, right? And so that's kind of what I did there. Guitars, same thing. I had a guitar DI and a guitar mic. I think for his monitor mix, I was just sending the DI to the channel, to his output. My bad, and that was that. But I still do like EQs on them both, just in case the DI fails and I have to use the mic.
Yeah.
Um, everything that DI that was DIYs from my memory of this show was all radial stuff. So shout out to Radial real quick. Yeah,
Best stuff out there. Yeah.
best stuff out there for real. Like radial DIs save lives. So if you're not using radial DIs, you're missing out on
If you're
such
not
great
using a
tools.
radial, you better be using the Rupert Neve DI, and that's it.
Exactly. Straight face. And I've used like imp DIs, which are really cool DIs. No offense to imp. I love using imp DIs as well, but just radial DIs just have that quality and that that unique build that just
You
saves
can chalk a
space.
plane with them, and it'll be fine.
Exactly. And like for me, for a radial DI to fail, it has to really have went through its paces. You know what I'm saying? Like I even have
Yeah.
a radial DI right now, which it was a stereo DI, and just recently, like one of the sides failed, and I was like, okay, cool. This radial DI probably has been used so many different times, so it's okay for like one side to fail. I just won't use it on the show. But it was because it was such an old DI. Like I think I've had it for a long, long,
Yeah.
long while. So, but Radial DI is best in the business. Shout out to Radial. I use
Send me
I
free
use.
stuff. Send him free stuff.
I mean, hey, send me stuff, Radial. I love working with you guys. You guys have great quality. So radial DI is on everything DI wise. Ableton stuff very generic. It's all process tracks at the end of the day. Like sometimes you have to do stuff to them, but in this case, if you have a great Ableton tech, and this is where I want to put a stop right now before I continue, because the rest of what I'm about to say goes into the musician side. People in the comments, have a conversation with your musicians or your Ableton techs or whatever they are for you on the said show. Who's ever doing what position? Once that source is right, it is like bread and butter for you at the end of the day. You have to have that source right, and it starts from there. It starts from a keyboard player being able to go into his keyboard and level off his sound so that way every sound he changes to sounds the same, whether it be a brass, whether it be flute, a synth, they all are coming up at the same level. And so internally in the keyboards, they have their own mixer setup that they can go in and say, okay, cool, let me turn this sound down, let me turn that sound down, let me balance off this sound. So if you have a musician who genuinely cares about how his sound is going to be, have a conversation with him, and if his keyboards are coming up out of whack, he will sit there and he will fix his keyboards. You know what I'm saying? Or he
Yeah.
will fix them before show. Like I was even talking to keyboard player that I work with, and we were having a conversation about sounds, and I was telling him, hey, you should work on like a festival, setup for main stage, so that way, if we're going out somewhere and we can't get one keyboard for you, you already have all your sounds already leveled out in this playing field. And it's the same thing with Ableton Techs, especially with this particular Ableton Tech. Shout out to Karan. He is a phenomenal guy. Works very very hard in the business. He runs around with multiple artists. So he was with us for this show, and every time his Ableton rig comes up, I just smile because I don't have to do anything. Like I just give it gain. I do a little bit of compression just to level it off, and I just let it ride. It just does what it needs to do. And so once that source is right, then you don't have to do anything. You really don't have to do anything. Now, I would say like this for spacing wise, um, I tend to sometimes, not in this particular file, but I tend to do a little bit of some dips, especially around like 1K, just so I can create this sonic pocket for the vocals to sit in. That way, there's nothing masking the vocals, and I do it predominantly at front of house when it applies to like guitars, keyboards, stuff like that. I didn't do it in this file in per se, but to each is his own. It's monitors, so everything is always changing. What doesn't work for one band will work for this one, but definitely I tend to a lot of times dip a little bit of 1K, not too much, maybe like 2 to 3 dB out, and create like a pocket for the vocals to just sit in and create space at the end of the day. Right. So moving on, there's Ableton, and then we move on to the keyboard setup, which should be the first screen, the next set of inputs down. So yeah, that screen, and then yeah. So let's see. We got keys, and we got a whole heap of keys. Now, again, this is a festival scenario. Okay, so keys wise, I think I had a total of probably 6 stereo keys, and or sorry, my bad. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So yeah, so 6 stereo keys, right? So the ones that are labeled other are definitely the keys I was using, and then I had 2 spare lines for 2 extra keys. But at the time, we didn't use them, and I was talking to my tech because I think initially the keyboard player wanted to add another keyboard. It was the one that was on my stage left side, and he said to me, well, they already had disconnected those lines because we weren't using them, and so they're not available and stuff like that. So I said, all right, cool, we won't use them. So with this setup, I have stage left keys, left and right, top, middle, bottom. The reason why I do this is because in this scenario, my top keys are usually the first set of keys that I start with, and they are 9 or 10 times the most predominant keys in the mix because those are the keys that are doing 90% of the grunt work for this show. They're doing brass, maybe some synth sounds, and it just varies. If the guitar player is not there, it might do like some weird guitar tones just to fill up some other stuff. Like the keyboard players that I work with for this particular band, they try to cover all the spectrum and fill in wherever it's needed because you already have tracks going, right? So you're just complementing the tracks at the end of the day and adding stuff into spaces that are needed to be added or felt that it needs to be filled. So top, middle, bottom, keyboard setup for anybody who's interested. I think we were using like extremes and motifs and maybe a Chronos. Yeah, a Chronos was definitely in his setup. It was more towards the stage right side, but I think on his side was extreme, motif, and I don't remember that. I don't remember the other one, so forget about that. But yeah, that's definitely keys, and again, just fundamental stuff I take out just to clear anything out, and that's how I treat my keys.
Turn the
Gain
knobs till
structure,
it sounds good.
turn the knobs to the sounds good. Gain structure wise, again, the keys are set at one level. I usually have them going at half, and if the input coming in is great, and the meters are all good, and it sounds good, and I don't have to add too much to it, it works for me. And they all can hear, and they all feel comfortable. Eh, it works. But that's generically what I do with keys. Nothing too crazy with these set of keys because these guys are pretty good at leveling off their sounds, which go back to my source discussion a while ago, which was if the source is good, that's less thing that you have to do. And I've had this conversation with so many different people now and in the past, And it's even gotten to a point where we've had like scary discussions of what if the source was so good one day that you didn't even have to apply an EQ. That's how crazy that's how in depth we got to it at one point. But that's just that's just thinking outside of the box. But getting the source right is essential, and it means at the end of the day there's less for you to have to do. So
Yeah.
this is one of those prime examples. And then we get back to the vocals, and that's the entire show. The vocals are gonna be the other side, and probably like bank two, not layer two, but bank two. So we get back to the vocals, and I have two mains, two guests, and I also have like a front of house top back, a MD top back, audience mics if that's there. I also had cleave a channel spare for my monitor top back. And that's just in case I don't do the initial setup with the talkback feature on digital. I usually just have it there just to save face. You know what I'm saying? So it's there as a backup. I wasn't using it, but it's definitely there. And so,
Sure.
um, with vocals, like I said, I already touched on the vocal dynamics, and again, these were all tailored to the sound of the vocalist. And with these artists, I've worked with them like couple times between this year and last year. And again, if I do like this weird, to most people who might be looking at it, oh, these are like weird EQ points, it's simply because like it sounded good to me. I used my ears, they liked it. It's all subject to change. Tailor it around your vocalist and have that conversation where does it feel good to you? And this is one thing I would say. I am a sole victim about this, right? I have a lot of conversations, both pre-show, during show, and post-show, right?
Yeah.
Especially when I'm dealing with a band who's on ears. I'm looking at you consistently, even while I'm mixing. I'm looking at you, all right? And I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at moods. I'm looking at how you operate because it tells me your comfortability on the stage. And if I can't make you comfortable, then I haven't done my job, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have to make you comfortable. I have to get you to a point where you operate in your own zone, that you deliver a dynamic show that leaves people being like, wow, this was really amazing. It's mind blowing, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm consistently having conversations with persons down the stage, even during show, especially when it's ears, because then I'm talking to like keyboard players, drummers, whatever the case may be. Like, you good? Anything else you need? You need a little less of this, a little more of that, because as you dive into mixing a band or mixing a artist, the songs are all going to be different. You know what I'm saying? And so different songs require different mix movements per song, especially when you start to know the whole set. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we've all heard like stories from different engineers talking about, okay, cool, you know, this guitar track fades in at this, and then it needs to go out at this point and stuff like that. That is a true scenario where even with a tracks rig, this song might be coming in at this level, or it might feel too loud to the band members on stage, and I have to bring it down. Or they might ask for it loud here, and then they're like, "Oh, can you bring this down a little bit?" And it's that back and forth conversation. And some people it might frustrate them. To me, I just look at it as they're the musicians. I just do what they tell me to do. It's my job to make sure that they're comfortable. I can't not argue with anybody because I'm not. The mix is not mine. The mix is theirs. At the end
Do you
of
have
the day.
control groups set
So
up
if they're not
to? Oh, sorry.
comfortable, then go ahead.
Do you have control groups set up for like the tracks so you can trim all the tracks in everyone's ears or something like that? Or
Uh, well, in this with this file, because I'm doing a lot of stuff in like post fader mode, I don't really use control groups. I just go strictly onto my post fader, my faders, and I pull down, or I will go into their mix. If it's just them, if it's just that one person that's saying, okay, this is too loud, I just go into that
gotcha.
mix and
Sure.
pull it down. Now, I'm not against using control groups. Control groups are fun. I would use control groups. You know what I'm saying? But post fader just, it just works for me a lot of the times where I
Sure.
don't even have to use control groups. And it goes back to one less thing I have to do that I won't get burnt on. Because in a nutshell, it's like if I'm using control groups, that's one more thing I have to remember that's in the file. And so when I do, if I use them, I use them. I don't. Um, and yeah, that's just a scenario. Now, what I do, going back to that master page, if you can pull back up that master page, is I do macros. So if you go on the setup and you pull up the macros, I do have some basic macros for this show. My macro one deals with my aux outputs. Macro two, stage. Um, macro three is input. Macro four, vocal effects. And then I have a fifth macro that's just like a talk back to ears, because I separate my talk back at times, especially when I have ears and wedges. So I would separate that just for that scenario where I just route my talk back just to the ears and just put it on a macro, and then it only turns it on in their ears, in whoever has ears. So in this scenario, I just wanted the talk back to go to my Ableton tech who was on ears and the drummer who was on ears, and have a conversation with them. Everybody else is on live wedges, so I would use the top back two stage to the wedges, but a lot of the times, once I have it set in sound check, or once I have it set within the first song, then I'm kind of like done with the wedges. Or we have a
Sure.
lot of like hand signal communication. So a lot of times I'll be doing like this, which means like vocals, and it'll be up, down, stuff like that. Or one of the cool things that I picked up from these other artists, and we had such an interesting conversation about it. Right, I was in Puerto Rico with Maxi Priest, and we had just left from Puerto Rico, and we were on a concrete stage, and we were heading to doing two back-to-back shows, and we were in the airport. And the night before, he gives me the signal, like this ripple effect signal, right? And I looked at him the first time, and I was like, and then it clicked to me, oh, he's talking about delay, because he did it two times, right? And so we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, that's so crazy how um different persons have different uh, like you know hand signals for effects. And he was saying, well, he made like a joke. He said, yeah, this means the delay and stuff like that. And I was like, I got you. And I put that in muscle memory for that artist. This means more delay for him. If he does this, that means more delay. And so it's like, doing that and having that communication with the band and figuring out, okay, cool, what works for what doesn't work, to ensure that we have consistent communication is efficient. So if you're using hand signals, have a discussion with the band, figure it out, and then find a formula that works for you. And
So we
that's
have
the
a
show.
question here. Oh, sorry. Finish that real quick.
Yeah, that was the last point.
Okay.
Just
Cool.
have a
So
discussion with the
I'm
band,
gonna
figure out
throw
what
this
works, and
question
that's it.
up, and I kind of want to
Hmm.
modify. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess a from what size production does redundancy make sense, and talk about like what redundancy do you like? Do you have a spare pack with a matrix and all the auxes go to that, or talk about how you would
Mm-hmm.
set up redundancy? For me, honestly, redundancy is important anywhere. So
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's tiny little show or if it's at the biggest show ever. It's always important to have a backup and a way out. So
S- So
I don't want to be caught short.
yeah. For me, I'm kind of the same way too. So I always have like a lead and a couple spares, depending on the size of the artist and how many vocals is going and how much I have available from the production company. Especially if I'm not, walking with my own gear. So I usually keep like a couple spare microphones ready. Um, Going back to, we don't have to pull it up, but going back to that output page where I had those two last, like very last, like oxes, like 16.7 or 15.16. Uh, those are essentially my spare backup oxes for some sort of redundancy. So, like for example, if I had another pack and I wanted to put it on that, and you asked me what ox is available, oh, 15.16. Okay, cool. Let's patch that. Excuse me, and let's go to that. Okay, cool. There's your spares. Now we got that in play. It is crucial to have spares because you run into these problems, especially when you're dealing with like RF hits that could come at any given time. If you have spare packs, that's cool. Have them set up, have them ready to go. Because then if you have to change that pack, you change it out quick, you switch it out, you rescan the initial pack, you try and figure out what's going on with that. You keep the show rolling. I have had one, and it was on a hip hop festival, and it wasn't bad. It was more just like some static on the line. So it wasn't bad. Like the artist had to like come off stage and stop performing. You know what I'm saying? It was more like I had a little bit of static, but it was cool. And like I tried to avoid stuff like that. But sometimes if nobody is complaining or if I don't hear it, then
Right. It's not
why?
there.
Why deal with it? You know what I'm saying? Especially when, I'm dealing with a bunch of other variables. Not to say that that's not important, but it's like if that person's not complaining or if I don't catch it or if I'm listening to it and it's clean, then it's a good day. A little bit of static, you know, it varies depending on how picky the artist is. You know what I'm saying? And how quickly I could get that changed out. And a lot of the times it's like if I'm already mixing and I have a tech and he can change it as fast as it's needed to be, I don't know, and I don't know what we're doing. But it all goes off to how much of a complaint it is. And in that case, it wasn't a whole lot of complaining about it because they were still able to go through the show. I think they said at the end of the day they got the static, but it was towards like almost the end of the show. So like if we're getting static at almost the end of the show, like we're almost like what, like one or two songs before we're done. I don't know. It just to each his own. Now, if it was in the beginning of the show, oh yeah, I'd get rid of that like immediately. Like, all right, cool, get rid of that static like instantaneously. But we were at literally like at the end of the show when that static issue started happening. And he told me this when we came off stage. He's like, I got static, but it was like down towards like the end of the show, but the whole entire mix was good. Just the static was just the little issue towards the end of the show, and it's RF, man. You live and you die and you fix it and stuff like that. Not to be so extreme, but yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Anything else with redundancy? Consoles. I mean, I don't really get too deep with console redundancy like that because it's usually for me it's just one console, so
Yeah.
that's about it. So
It's pretty
yeah,
rare to see two
I,
consoles,
I
set
wish,
up for redundancy.
I wish, but
Um,
nah, it's not like that.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm gonna hide the. Is there anything else you want to show in your file before I hide this?
Um, no, that's about it. That's it.
Okay, cool. Um, so um, is Grunie sleeping? No, I'm not. Obviously, I'm talking. That'd be very weird if I was. I'm very impolite. Um, so I'm gonna move my screen back over too, so I'm looking at the camera now.
Are you good?
Um,
It's good. He's sleeping. That's funny.
there we go. There we go. Yeah.
Uh,
Everybody loves to complain, and then when anyways, so yeah, if you guys have more questions, ask them. But I
yeah.
think I want to try to bring back up the discussion we were having before this started because that was very lively. Um,
Yes. Let's get into that discussion.
so yeah, we were talking. Let's see, where do I want to start with this? Um,
What do we?
let's talk about maybe you were saying, talking about when you wanted to start saying no to like college gigs. And so let's maybe talk about like how, because artists of all different sizes will play and there's
Yes.
different degrees of that. So let's maybe get into that a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, I was going into that conversation. To me, college gigs are fun because it's people in their in their youth, they're listening to their favorite artists. I remember when I was in my teens, like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2021. Early college years where I was going out and just having fun, and that's so unique about doing a college show is that you get those people who just want to have fun, and so, but it also comes to you as a person where it's like, how long do you really want to still be doing like those type of shows before you say, all right, cool, just call me when it's like that big show. And for me, it's like I enjoy doing college shows, so I think I'll still be doing them for a very, very, very long while. Because at the end of the day, music is gonna live on longer than all of us. At the end of the day, new artists gonna come, new artists are gonna go, um, and they're all gonna come at some point and create that experience for that particular audience. So we just tailor it around that. And if you're a type of person who is aiming for like the big arenas and stuff like that, which is also cool, um, then put yourself into that position to be called for those gigs. So you could say no to a college gig, but at the same time too, like it's still a fun gig to do. And like I no way, shape, or form I will ever knock a college gig, because those to me are the most exciting gigs. Like they are so lively, they get so crazy. I mean, like it just gets so wild. You're dealing with a lot of demographics, like screaming fans, and everybody's like, "Woo, ha, ha, blah," all that stuff. And so it's like it's a rush just to hear how they you know listen to the music and love the music at that same time at that age. But at the same time too, like you can get it once from anywhere else, wherever you go. So it's just your own perspective on where you want to be at your point in life, where you could say no to this and yes to this and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at with the whole college gig discussion. Is like, when you reach a certain point, then you start of your career where you can afford to say no to something or yes to something. Then you make that decision. If not, just keep the fun times rolling, man.
I think depends too on what artist you're working for.
Hmm.
Um, makes all the difference, obviously. And I guess the guys mixing the younger artists are the ones that are going to be doing the college shows because that's kind of where that's its own circuit now for sure.
Exactly.
It's I want to say you do if you're a club level artist, you're like mid to large clubs, you're probably playing colleges too. And that's part of your gig is working for that artist. Um,
Exactly.
so, and I guess it depends. And I think I would equate it. It's so similar to playing clubs too, because with some exception, you might have a little more control, or you might have a little more fights about yeah, I want two more subs aside here because we're outside and you're giving me single 18s, or no, I don't want you to use that vendor or XYZ. Um,
The only thing I say that I kind of hate about doing some club gigs versus like doing like a regular tour or or earlier gig is that some club gigs just they go into like these weird times in the morning, and it's like I've done them a whole lot. It's like for the persons that are watching this who know me, like especially predominantly in the islands, like club gigs run anywhere from like 10 p.m. to almost like six,
oh,
seven in
like
the morning,
raves. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my god.
basically. And it's like
Oh my god.
I love them, but sometimes it's like I miss my bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, or
Yeah, we were talking the time that the show I did Cardi B at was
hmm
like a rave, and then that was just broken up by Cardi B, like from like at like midnight to I think the actual thing started at like 8 p.m.
hmm
and went till like 4 or 5. We got home at like 9 o'clock in the morning. We got back to the shop.
basically.
Yeah.
Or
Um,
you reached in one of them scenarios where it's like, all right, cool. They gave you your time. You're going on like 2 a.m. You sound checked at like maybe like 11, 12 p.m. that day, and I'm just at I'm just at wherever I'm staying, like sleeping until like like 12 a.m. and then I wake up and it's like, all right, cool, time to go to the venue and then go back home or whatever the case may be. It just gets to that point and it's like how much more can you do it, like. So fun fact, and like one of my buddies is on here who is like my mentor, and he's like been with me through most of my career. Like I mix a band that he plays for, Monitors Wise, and we were doing a festival one day, and it was like one of these like 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. type of shows. We go on at like 12, and we come off at like 1:30, right? And then I stayed because I was just hanging out at the festival, ended up mixing another band. And I stayed after that other band. And I was chilling with some homies, and in the truest form, I sat down in a chair, like backstage, like in like the dressing area, side stage, wherever it was. I was just chilling, and I fell asleep in the chair, like literally hard body, like. And like somebody comes and walks up and they're like, "Are you sleeping?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" I had my shades on. The sun was coming on. I was like, because at that point it's just like, I'm just tired. You know what I'm saying? Like I've done it so many times and I'm tired.
let's see. I think it was a Kyle gig, and it was in Arizona. I want to say.
hmm
And when that's like sometimes when you fly and your ear will not unpop, and it's just yeah, right. It was one of those days, and I've been having a few days like that, and I was pissed off, and so we stopped like a strip mall from going from the airport to the gig,
hmm
and I picked up a whole bunch of Sudafed, and
Yes,
right, you can see where this is going, and I
I
like
can see where this is
passed
going.
out like on this couch in the college stadium dressing room, um, and then woke up and I was like, I didn't miss the show, did I? And then like ran out to front of house like 35 minutes like before our set change, and it's fun.
I mean, I mean, I,
I can't sleep under a stage though. I've tried that. I've tried that at raves. I've tried doing it at I think I tried doing it at a punk show one time. Um, and I can't sleep under a stage, even if it's
okay.
cardioid subs. Can't do it.
So I'm gonna give you like the funniest story. I was working recently before the pandemic. We're doing a Greek show, right? And I thought it was just a regular show, like we're in and we're out. No, this was like they go on like almost 10, and they go consistently do music until like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And we just had been there since in the morning. And this is the funniest thing. Like I was a tech, and they didn't have like a spotlight operator, so I went up and I did the spotlight, right? And I remember sitting there and I started like dozing off at the spotlight, like, and then the spotlight starts dancing, and then
Nice.
I got the radio on me, and the LED says, "Hey, point the light, point the light." And we started laughing, and I was like, bro, I'm sleepy as hell. Like this is just going on because it was just consistently the same beat for about 4 hours, and they're just going round and round and round and round and round, and I'm like, no, Greek music is fun, eh? But it's just like at that point, I was just tired. I just like, okay, gotta get back to the spot. Like, I just kept dipping, but I think we got a bunch of questions, so let's touch back these
Yeah, these
questions.
guys have been talking about digital versus analog wireless.
Yeah.
Um, so I haven't been reading because they've been talking amongst themselves here.
Okay,
Uh,
this first one is pretty cool. Digital versus analog wireless. Which one I prefer? Um, hmm. I'd have to say like traditionally, I love just plugging in an XLR into a a wireless unit and just going in that way.
I think they're
You
talking
can
about
go
like
deep.
Axient D versus UHFR or something like that.
Oh, okay. Because I was about to say that question could be interpreted anyway because
Yeah. Yeah, no, for
now
sure.
with the way how they're building wireless, it's all Dante spoken. So literally, you don't even need an XLR anymore. You just need like a Dante certified port switch, and
Yeah.
you just take it from there. But yeah, I mean, Active versus UHFR, they both work. Obviously, Axiom is gonna sound a lot cleaner. It's going to be a lot more easier to coordinate than a UHFR to an extent because you can do a lot more on the unit itself than what you do
Yeah.
on a UHFR. But I mean, for the most part, like if you give me UHFR, I'll make it work. If you give me Axiom Digital, I'll make it work. Um, would I like the Axiom Digital a lot more? Yeah, because it's better technology. I would
I
definitely
remember
want it, but I'll use UHFR. I
yeah,
use
I remember
both.
when we first got the Axient Ds and what was the first gig I used? I think Post Malone would have been the first gig I used them on.
Nice.
Was it Post? I forget exactly who it was. Um, but we had been doing URs, since that, before that. And I remember, obviously the feature set is amazing. I remember originally like
Mm-hmm.
thinking that the UR sounded so much better than the Axients, the D's at least.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I have just kind of gotten, they don't actually sound that different. There's the digital versus analog thing.
Mm-hmm.
The accents are a bit more sterile, I guess, or they have like a harshness, kind of, sort of. But I haven't noticed that in a long time now. So
Um, I've used Axiom Digital before, and you know, it's a great unit.
it is, love
Um,
it.
the UHFRs, UR4Ds or ULXDs, those are great units too. The only thing I would definitely say is just just as long as you coordinate the frequencies right and get them to a point where you have as little of interference and actually know how to work the units because again it's newer technology, cool features. I remember, and this is a mutual friend of ours. Me and Blair were talking about this
Oh
one
yeah.
day, and it was pertaining to like PSN 1000s and the upgraded stuff with I think it was like the PHRs versus something. And I asked him a question about it once, like what's the difference with because I think the 1000s had just came out with some cool new features. And I asked him what's the difference between the current 1000s and these newer 1000s. And it was like, I think it was like some added gain, stuff like that. And it's like, all right, that's cool. And it's just you understanding the units and you understanding what it is, how it is you want them to work, and what it is you want them to do. But for me personally, and I'll say this, to the whole wireless game, let me try to word this the right way. I like wireless today that you can network together. that you
Yeah.
can, wrangle all together. Like, I don't want to go into the older units where, okay, cool, I have to set this manually here and set that manually there and set this manually here, when I can have all the units together and say, okay, cool, this is them all in the inventory in wireless workbench. These are all the frequencies. I have the TV channels added. I'm using an RF Explorer to figure out whatever else can be can cause interference. I have all this information in front of me, so I can wrangle them all together and get efficient wireless that doesn't have interference for a long show, and we are all happy. If you go back into the older models that you can't network, it's like, all right, cool. You have to play around with the presets, and if this preset don't work, you got to go back to that preset. And it's like, yeah, just diving into presets, preset,
Yeah.
preset, preset, preset.
I want to bring this one up real quick because I think you can't really compare unless you have the same capsule on the sticks. You can't really
Mm-hmm.
compare what two mics sound like. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so you're kind of gonna need to elaborate if you have the same capsule on both sticks, or you're just comparing a 935 versus a 58. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Um. Yeah. Same thing as what you said. Like if you're not using this, if you're not using like the same six, then the comparison can be tricky because at the end of the day, they're two different units with their own cool features, and it also goes back to, does it fit the voice of your artist? Like, I've had this conversation with so many different people, right? In terms recently, because we have Shure, Heil, Sennheiser, DPA, SE, all different microphones with all different frequency responses. How does it fit towards your artist? You know what I'm saying? And it was so crazy because I just had this discussion last night with a friend of mine, and he was like, "Yeah, we have like 4 or 5 different capsules, and it just depends on what sounds best for this artist." And he was like, "Oh, the TPA and Telefunken and sure," and it's like that makes sense because it's not every capsule is gonna work for every artist. Depends on how they hold a microphone. It depends on how their vocal ranges. It depends on what type of sound you're looking for because I might like a SE V7 doesn't mean it's gonna work on. For example, if I might have an SE V7 doesn't mean it's gonna work on Gus Dapperton for example.
yeah.
It
He was
may or
using
may
that for a
not.
very long time, and now we're on KSM8. It's funny you say that. I think that he did try a DPA and didn't like it, and I think that would be a great capsule for him. But I just know it's gonna get destroyed up there, so can't do it.
Exactly. So it's just understanding what your artist wants to use, giving him the suggestion, like in a rehearsal space, like, hey, I got like this SEV7, like let's try it and let's see what it sounds. And if they like it, it's a plus. If they don't like it, let's go back to the drawing board again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And even if it means talking to like a microphone company and say, "Hey, I'm about to go do rehearsals with this artist. Is there any way that maybe you could send me like a demo capsule because we are considering like putting it in our arsenal, but we want to like test drive it first, make sure it kind of fits to what we're doing." And 9 out of 10 times, like if you're talking to a good rep, they'll send you demos. I was just talking to another rep the other day about the same thing for like idiots because I currently am on UE, and I was looking at different in-ear models because a lot of the artists that I do right now are JH audio artists. And even though I get a good mix for them, I still want to know why they chose Roxanne. So I need to have like that specific pair to be able to say, okay, cool, this is the sound of Roxanne's, and this is what they like, and that's what it is. So it goes down to that, like what does the artist prefer, and you work from there. Everything is not going to be the same for everybody. That's why we are all unique human beings. But you know, to each his own. If it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. If it works, it becomes your success story. And if it doesn't, you find another success story. That's gonna be all types of stories to use, and it just
Yeah.
fits the way you work. Interesting enough, like for example, that that is a soul band that I was talking about, Hablo Brown. Like we when I first got introduced to them was through my buddy Rich Moreno, and we went and we did a one off with them because they were opening up for this other group called Hello Hone, and the lead singer Linus, he is like this kind of kindred old school type of spirit. In the way how he dresses, the way how he talks to a crowd, and like kind of reminds me of like a Elvis Presley type
Yeah.
of spirit. And so if you look at some of his videos, which I've checked them out, you um sorry, got a text message.
It's all good.
Um, if you look at some of his videos, like I think he owns like sure a Super 55, right?
Yeah.
And that's how he performs. Like he doesn't really do like a bunch of running around. He'll put a show of Super 55 on the stand and be like, so how y'all feeling tonight?
Yeah. Good old
We are
Texas.
Hablo Brown, and this is blah 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 in a nutshell. And we even talked about like wireless stuff, which I kind of want to present them with a cool idea with the Super 55 and trying to see what we could do with it.
You could probably even do like
I'll
an
tell you.
XLR down to like one of those plug-on sticks.
hmm I think, or even with so many different like wireless adapters, especially because I checked this out with this company called Me Pro. At one point, they were designing these wireless adapters, and I saw them at Infocom one year, and I was like, "Oh, these are cool." And then it became like a thing over in like Asia where guys were like using the Mi Pro adapters to do like reference
Oh, yeah,
system
yeah, yeah,
tuning,
yeah, yeah.
right? And I was like, I wonder if I it brought to me my thought a couple days ago. I wonder if I buy one of those, put them on like a wired microphone, like a Super 55 or something like that, will it work for what I want it to do? And if it
Yeah.
does, it'd be like, all right, cool. Now we could just
Electrosonics
like
has one of those as well. Yeah.
exactly. Now we could just put it on the stand, or we could screw it off, and he could be like walking around with it, like, so what's up? Maybe give him like a short boom or something like. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just different things to think about. But that's how crazy wireless get because we have broken the wireless adapter barrier. I mean, look at what like for example, look at what Brandon and Laureen did uh with Lizzo making a flute wireless. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody
Was that
thought
just
that
like
would
a log
happen.
that they taped onto it, or like a DPA
It was
at
some.
point 99 or
It
something?
was according to the article. It was something pertaining to something from Sennheiser. I have to like go back and read it, but he spoke about it in the article, and it works. Like now she has like a wireless flute. Like she runs around with a wireless flute during her show. It works. So
Sure.
our wireless so has changed over the years, and it only has gotten better and better and better, and it's only going to keep getting better. So there will be like more innovations like that, where we might end up seeing a lot more people with like wireless adapters, like a saxophone player running around
Yeah.
with something wireless, or something weird like that,
Yeah. We were just talking
which
about our
which
friend Fez and their sax player is definitely wireless because he's part of that whole downstage line of guys doing choreography.
Exactly. And I mean, and I kind of said that in the wrong context because technically saxophones have been wireless already for some time. But I was, I was just throwing an instrument out there, like I
Yeah,
don't know, whatever instrument that might end up being wireless one day, added
drums.
to the list of wireless. I mean, if we get to wireless drums,
I know that people have done that with like the what was it, Travis Scott? Didn't or not Travis Scott?
Travis Barker.
Yeah, I think that's who I'm thinking of. Somebody's been doing somebody's been doing wireless drums and
I
Motley
mean,
Crue. Um,
or let's see, that makes sense because like somebody like Motley Crue was doing like weird like 360 in the air drum spin arounds. Like, I guess you can make it happen with a long enough like subsnake going up there. But if you had wireless, it's just like,
yeah,
okay, we don't need to run this copper anymore, guys. Just make sure the signal is clean and we are good to go. But then it's one more thing to add to your inventory when you're wrangling all these frequencies together.
yeah,
That's why the job of an RF tech is so fun because you look at what all they're looking at, especially when you got an artist like that's doing like a bunch of different microphones, like different multicolored microphones. Like this one has to be white, this one has to be red because it matches
yeah,
my red outfit, and blue, and all these different things. It's like one, two, three, four, five, plus different tech mixes and stuff like that. Um, and it's so crazy how the job of an RF tech has to go in that deep to make sure that happens. Somebody in the comments said they never heard of Me Pro. Me Pro's been around for a while. They've done like a bunch of other stuff, but what uh, kind of gravitated me to it was more of their like audio side because Me Pro was more video heavy in terms of like cameras, SD cards, stuff like that, and then they kind of, to me, I capitalized on them audio wise when I went to like Infocom and I saw that they were doing like audio solutions, and it was like, okay, cool, Me Pro, got you. Ooh, this question is dope. Have any of you guys ever done rap shows?
ooh,
How to
let's get
deal
into
with
that.
people, how to deal with people jumping off stuff with mics and tons of background noise, rapidly giving mics to fans, or putting mics in the wedges.
Oh, well, yes.
You want to touch this one first? Cause,
Oh
cause, cause
God, how many rap shows have I done now? It's in the thousands. Um,
I have a few, but you
yeah.
know,
Um, people jumping off. I mean, that's all down to your A2 and trying to wrangle them and having a guy on both. If there's one point of entry, make sure there's a guy that's grabbing mics. And yeah, we've done so many shows. I'm sure everyone has where there's just X number of channels of wireless, and they grab one of them. And when you see signal coming down a meter, you're like, oh, that's the one, and you give it the gas. And you got a DJ mixer up there, and red is not enough of a color for them. It's just going. um, Barclay
oh my
Center,
god.
done that gig. Um, yeah, we were saying that Cardi B gig was like
Hmm.
it's like a 3,000 cat venue, and there's a video on YouTube that has like over 1 million views from that show, and the vocal sounds pristine, amazing for a
Hmm.
58, right? And
Hmm.
then the DJ and the tracks are just it sounds like it's coming through a Marshall. So,
I
anyways, to
wanna
answer the actual question, how do we deal with people jumping off with tons of background noise? Um, PSE.
you just if you can use a PSC and you have a console that uses a PSC, hey, let's do it. If you have a console that has an expander feature on it, do it. If you have a console that generally has a gate, you can do it with the gate as well too. You just
If
have to make the gate attack very very quick, so that way and you set the threshold to a point where it's just covering that background noise, and it's opening and closing quickly, so that
Yeah.
way it doesn't affect the whole way how the artist is hearing the vocals. Um,
Most rappers too will not do like the Lionel Richie and have the mic wait. It'll be pretty close to their face, so you could even set your key to be like
Mm-hmm.
way low. Like you can slide your filter down, and so it's like if it's just like somebody going ah, in the crowd, it's not going to open for that. But if it's a guy that's right up on it, it'll open to like the low mid low stuff. Um, you can do
Now
that
when it
too.
now when it comes to wedges, I'm gonna say it like this, straight to the point. When you have a rapper who would put a microphone into a wedge, you just gotta look at you just gotta keep your eye on that ball because like there's no set time for it to happen. You ring the wedge out and you keep your eye on him because he'll just do it off the spur of the moment. And if you're not paying attention, that's when you'll get it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like I'm like, if I have a rapper that's that wild, I usually just be like, okay, and I make sure the whole front of me is clear because I tell people I need to see what's going on, and if you're in my way, you are hindering what I'm doing because you're
yeah,
not gonna get yelled. I'm going to get yelled. So definitely post fader, keep your eye on the ball, and as my buddy says, post fader and pray. Just keep your eye on the ball and watch for when that happens because it's not just a rapper thing. It's an artist thing where an artist just gets comfortable and he just starts swinging his hands
yeah,
like he just swings their hands and then just go and that's it. You know what I'm saying? And you will get away with maybe one ring, but then you try not to get that one ring. You try to avoid that. So if you're paying attention, you're watching him, and you see when he makes that swing, and I was kind of talking. I think I was talking to you about this or somebody else about this. Hearing is so crazy, right? I like to say like this: there is like a maybe like a 2 second window when you're in the heat of the moment when it comes to hearing, where when everything is hitting you, right, and you're feeling it, and you stop, right, and you start to swing and do all those things. That's that 2 second window where when you're in post fader, pull that fader out real quick, and as soon as you swing that hand back up to go say something, you better bring that post fader back up. It's a short 2 second window because they run out of breath. They stop talking. You know what I'm saying? They start trying to catch their air, but that's your 2 second window to just watch out for the rings. And as soon as
yeah,
they start again, you just think, or you get to a point where like you get everything so balanced that even if you take it down a couple dB, they don't notice. They're already loud as hell already. So they a lot of times like they don't notice unless it's a drastic dip in the volume. It has to be like very, very drastic. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? But then again, you have that 2 second window where you're just like, all right, cool.
yeah.
Take it out, bring it back.
Um, I had a great monitor engineer when I was. Well, I had two guys, I had Blair, and I had this other guy.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Blair's
Blair
awesome.
was great, and then but the only two I only did two of the 5 gigs with Kyle, with Blair.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other was with this other guy, Ian,
Mm-hmm.
and he was great about getting on the shout and saying he's going down in the crowd, he's jumping off the stage, he's jumping, he's under he's gonna be under the PA, and even though because I have a bad habit of getting I will be chest deep in the console. Um,
Yeah.
I am very bad about
Um,
looking at the deck.
I will say the same thing for me when I'm at front of house. Like, so I do like this weird show every year. It's like a competition, and like I run into the same issues where like guys wanna, like Superman and come out the crowd or come off some roof or come off like a crane or something. And I had a monitor tech who was like, "All right, he's on the right side of the PA,"
Yeah,
and I'll be with my pan like, "Oh, swing to the left, swing to the right, swing to the left," like and just like figure it out that way.
yeah, the one and only,
But
George.
the one
Yeah,
and only, the
the
one
one
and
and only.
only Blair Bundy. Blair's a super cool guy.
Yeah.
I love Blair.
If you guys don't know Blair, he's great.
Yeah, you
Um,
should you should get to know him.
yeah,
He's really chill. Also, um, for most people with comments, another cool guy. He's writing the comments. He's on the Revolution Entertainment. That's a buddy of mine, one of my close friends, one of my brothers. His name is Azam Bailey. Phenomenal monitor guy. Like, if you've never had a conversation with him, you really need to. He's he's been out with Shaggy. He's done like different reggae artists. He's like done like system tech work for like Demi Lovato and all these
That's
different
impressive.
people. Yeah, so if definitely a great person to have a conversation with about monitors, because when I was starting in the business, especially coming from where we come from, it was there was there was like there was like really good engineers, and then they were like great engineers, and he was one of the persons that I really look up to as like a phenomenal engineer, because
Yeah,
setting that temperature on the stage, and making sure everybody's comfortable and everybody's consistently good. And I've done a show where he's been like my monitor tech, and I was like, "Oh, you doing the show? Oh, I have nothing to worry about today." And like, we're gonna just do a show, and we'll be both looking at each other like, so how's the weather today? Oh, the weather's great, because like we're just comfortable with the show. Like we've done
yeah,
everything we need to make the show good, to make the show happen, and that's the value of having a good monitor tech, or a
yeah,
good person who gives a crap about audio,
yeah.
because you know
Which Joe are you talking about, George?
I think you might be talking about Joe Hello.
Yeah, so Joe. So I'll just run you through the whole. Yeah, so Joe was my PM when I was with Kyle, and
Hmm.
like the other front of house guy, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it was me, him, and Blair. Um, Me, him, and Blair doing rehearsals, Coachella, making that whole thing happen. Um, with Kyle, and yeah, so Joe,
which
and then we
which
would
which
also
which
also
was a
work on the
great show,
post
by the
stuff.
way.
Say again.
Which was a great show, by the way. I remember watching that Super Duper Car Coachella that year. That was a great show,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah.
So,
With Chance on the first week.
hmm.
I forget. I don't think we had a guest on the second week. I think it was just Chance. Yep, yeah, Joe. Hello. Yep. Yep. Known Joe for, oh god, getting on 2 years now.
Which is
Um,
crazy, because that year opened a lot of people's eyes, and a lot of people don't realize that, like, you had Kyle on Coachella that year, you had her, you had Daniel Caesar, and somebody was saying, "Oh, Daniel Caesar's so unknown." I said, "No, he's not. Like, Daniel Caesar's been
he's
on
been on every
Coachella
main stage
already.
I've seen. Yeah, in
Like,
2018, he was
if
on
you're
every
not
main stage.
if you're not paying attention to Daniel Caesar, you're sleeping, because like he's done it already. Like, he's done like like Europe tours, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
You
Do
know what I'm
you
saying?
remember what was that festival called in New York? Not Governor's Ball, but it's in that same site. Um, the hell is it called? I remember doing. I was there with a console rental one year. I think it was
Hmm.
the last year that they did it, and Daniel Caesar was on the main stage, um, which was also a rat rig. Okay, well,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with me. Um,
No, you good. By the way, shout out to Daniel Caesar's like touring crew, like Mike and Cameron. Mike's a cool guy.
yeah,
Phenomenal amount of engineer. Mike Rowland. If you guys don't know about Mike Rowland, go check him out. Like, Mike is Mike's just that guy. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? He's the TM now. I think he's a TM now for Daniel, as well as the monitor guy. And Mike has a lot of cool stories. So,
yeah.
but yeah.
But yeah. No, it was post that year too. So what happened too, and maybe I'll have Blair on one time, and we'll talk about me at this one time and how poorly I behave. Anyways, um, but yeah, so it was me, Joe, and Blair doing Kyle. Joe was the PM, just when I was around. Um, and then I
Hmm.
stayed after the next day for the post set as well for the first week, and did
Hmm.
basically nothing but complain. Uh, no, um, and we worked on that. So yeah, those are good people. If you can go on Blair's Instagram and hear his mixes, and they're great.
Oh man, if you have not sit through a Blade in mix, let me tell you, it is an experience. Nonetheless, I had a chance to go out to a show that he was doing when he was out with John Bellion for a little bit,
Yeah,
and like I sat there and I listened to his mix, and I was like, Oh, I just like I just melted for a little bit because that mix was so good. And
I'm
then
sure those inputs are great too. But
hell
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, Blair's really great.
and he was like he was
Um,
like he was on an SXL, for the whole entire tour, and it was good. You know what I'm saying? He has great mixes, and also, I've been out to a show when I was talking about like the multiple colored microphones. It was a Jennifer Lopez show, and Chris Lee, who's also the monitor engineer for Kendrick and stuff like that. You know, I was listening to Chris's mix, and this was when the 32-bit preamp cards had just
yeah,
came out for digital, and I was listening, I was like, damn, this thing sounds really good, and I was like, so Chris, like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And he told me, dude, it's the 32-bit preamp cards. That's what I have in this console. There's no
yeah.
waves, there's no nothing. I was like,
Who is this? Was this Chris Lee? You said?
yeah, Chris Lee.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He
Chris
told
Lee's
he
great too.
like
I
like
haven't I
he,
haven't talked to him in a minute. To hit him
yo,
up.
Chris has a
He was
bunch of
rehearsing
good
next to
stories.
us.
Yeah,
At Center Staging. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
He's hilarious. Chris Lee at Jedi Mixer.
yeah.
George, please get Blair his vlog looks at this. I don't need his vlog to look at this. I'll text him after this and I'll
Exactly.
get him for the week. I'm still firming up who's going to be next week, but get him the week after
Yeah.
that. But anyways, yeah, yeah. I remember that the first time I heard the 32-bit cards with them, and so in rehearsals it was me and Blair sharing one stage rack with the
Mhm.
32-bit cards.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I remember thinking that they were like, that was nice and special. Because the first Kyle show
Right.
I'd done and I had
Right.
the tracks from was the 24-bit card, and which is great. And all the K stage racks still have them. They're great. Um,
Mhm.
a 32-bit card is just better.
Let me tell you something, right? With that 32-bit card, if and I'm a type of person, and I will say this to everybody on the live. I am not a heavy like Waves user. I do have some key plugins that I do use, like C6 and SSL channel strip and the Waves tune for auto tune and H delay and stuff like that. But I only use maybe like five plugins maybe. But with the 32-bit preamp card, I mean, I, I've done a festival where I just used the 32-bit preamp card and got like a very very nice balanced well sounding mix based
Yeah,
off of the preamp card, and it just comes from the way how the preamp sounded, and being able to get the source right, being able to this because um I'm not gonna knock anybody. Waves is a great tool. You know what I'm saying? I love Waves. You know what I'm saying? I think it's very good when you're trying to have a pristine, nice colored mix that it's very very good. But sometimes we just gotta go back to the fundamentals because you know you have to find that balance between using waves and figuring out what the console does. And I'm an advocate
right.
for what the console is. I want to know what the console is doing first before I add the wave. So if the console sounds like shit, you know what I'm saying? Then the wave's just gonna help to get it to where I need it to go. But if the console sounds great, the waves is just like the icing on the cake, just to
Yeah,
melt it in. But I don't need it because I've done like that festival I was telling you about, Day in Vegas.
yeah,
I had a 12, and there was like a 7, I think, out front, and I was on the 12 with a 32-bit preamp card, and I just mixed, and nobody missed anything. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? I talked to the musicians afterwards. Said, "How was that mix for you?" Even though we didn't really have a sound check, we just had 30 minutes change over, and it was like it was cool. I heard everything. I was like, okay, that's all I wanted to know.
yeah,
Let's go. And to this day, like I still talk to those musicians. Those are like my family. Like if they know if I'm coming out to a show, oh, they're fine. It's him. We've worked with him like 2 times already.
yeah.
He's great. You know what I'm saying? So
Um, I feel like for me, where waves becomes an essential part of how I work gets into gates,
hmm
because I don't like, even including Digico. I haven't heard the mustard gate, but I don't really like any console gates. Um,
true that.
it's just don't. They just tend to. You can hear when they actually start changing tonality, and even at their fastest setting, they either click and they distort, or they have some other kind of shift, or they even at their fast setting, they're still not fast enough.
Exactly, and it kind of leads me to this other story. So I am to most people, to most people that know me, I have always been like kind of like a small advocate for Soundcraft. Whereas like I started off on like in one of my initial first shows was on the big full size SI3. You remember that big joint? It was almost as big as like an XL4. You need like two people to tip it and
Yeah,
flip it, but it was such an amazing sounding desk, right? And I listened to the SI Compact and I listened to the SI Expression, and I was like, this fucking compressor sounds like ass, but it's a DBX comp. What the fuck? And I kept saying, this thing sounds like the cheapest version of a DBX comp. It just sounds like garbage. No offense, but it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. But then when I jumped on the VI series, I was like, all right, now we're going somewhere. So I am an advocate for the full size FSI3 and the VI series. After that, I don't know. I don't know anymore. You know?
what's George saying? Yeah, like WNS. WNS is not necessarily a gate though. That's a noise suppression deal.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
different than a gate. But I'm talking about like emo, like on drums, like emo D5, C1.
hmm
Um, even though C1 has a ton of latency. What else? What's the other one? And the SSL channel stuff.
yeah.
Um,
And even on that, like I'm an advocate for expander because the trick with gates is versus expanders is that expansion is a fixed ratio. It's like
yeah,
100 to 1, right? A gate you still figuring out the ratio, right? So if I use expander which are at 100 to 1, then all I'm doing is
it's a
just
gate. Yeah,
playing with with the threshold, and I'm just taking out the background noise because it's already at a high ratio.
right.
So it's like just clean up the noise floor. But I will still use the gate. I just play around with like the attack time and stuff until I get it to where it's supposed to be hitting the exact. And usually try to do with most of my gating. I try to synchronize them into time. So if the drums is going like like this in my head, which is like timing, I would just try to synchronize that gate, at least the attack time to that timing and the release time to that timing, whatever the time is in milliseconds. And once I could hear like it's not chopping the sound too much,
Yeah.
then I know that the gate is doing exactly what it
The
needs to
trick
do.
is getting like not letting like if it's close to a symbol and not letting that in too much when it's like before there. Especially what I like about emo D5 is that there's that close threshold as well. And playing with that and
hmm
really getting your hold and release times right so that you're not chopping
Exactly.
it off, but you're also the hold time isn't so long that you're letting the symbol in and letting it reopen the gate again, even if the filter is scooched down. Um,
Exactly. You know what we should talk about though at the same time too? When we're talking about getting people vary it with it in terms of overheads or even like, mic symbols. Some people under mic, some people over mic. What my approach usually is just over
Overheads.
miking with my overheads
Yeah.
just so I could get the whole coverage of the drum. But then, I've done like under miking just to get like cymbals and to just be like, all right, cool. I'm gonna just take the source from the toms and the overhead is just gonna get the cymbals and we're gonna just rock that way. And it varies. So like, what's your approach to it?
I like overheads. I've never been able to get an underhead sound, even with like that, like the standard small diaphragm condenser under a ride cymbal that everyone does. I've
Mm-hmm.
never liked the sound of cymbals from underneath them, and I've tried it, and I've seen other people that can do it really well, and especially like in the there's two markets where it's huge, like in the harder rock metal scene, that's like a big
Exactly.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've just never gotten that to sound right for me. It's always too clanky. So
Mm-hmm.
I am into overheads for sure, and I'm gonna stick with them until somebody tells me there's a video wall upstage of the drummer and I can't have them anymore. So,
Exactly.
so and because if you pan them, symmetrically, let's say, or if you need to do this or that to make it fit, the level offset of each symbol into both mics will determine that panning for you. So
Mhm.
the argument um, of undermiking each symbol and being able to pan it more accurately does have some validity.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if you're doing a spaced pair of overheads or even XY or anything, that offset will still create that panning for you.
Not,
So I would
I
rather
know to
have
invest in
that
that
and it
too.
be more natural and less likely to get smashed by the edge of a symbol or
Yep.
thrown back in the hardware case by accident. Um, so yeah, and with Gus, I didn't have the inputs at that point in time. I massively expanded the input list going forward. We've gone from 32 up to 40, I think now it's going to be,
Uh huh.
which is not massive, but yeah, I've just and even I will. It's funny George was talking about like Blair and waves. I will do a lot to try to get the snare if it sounds trashy and the overheads out of that to some
Mhm.
extent. But
Um, for me,
yeah,
it's more or less like same thing when you like this is how it sounds source wise. Um, I have tried like this really cool thing of like delaying overheads. It was something that was put on to me by this guy. He's a tech over at Avid, Ryan O'John.
okay.
He was doing a podcast one day, just playing around mixing some stuff, and you know he talked about like delayed overheads, and I listened to him
Overheads or
for a little
dry
bit.
or shell mics?
No, overheads, like
Yeah, yeah.
delaying like one overhead to the next, and I tried it once in a mix, and it works. If you have like good placement and stuff like that. So it all goes back to how you place your stuff, as well as, and this leads into my next topic, polarity. Polarity is so freaking crazy the way how it works, because like, and I'm not even gonna talk about like polarity as it pertains to like a kick drum. I'm gonna talk more like polarity as it pertains to like toms and snares.
Yeah.
So traditionally, I usually just invert the polarity on my bottom mic, but recently I have been switching it up and doing a polarity invert on my top mic, and it kind of came from the science where another buddy of mine, we were discussing it after I tried it. We were talking about the way how sound kind of reflects when you hit drums. It's like you hit it and it's going into the microphone in a nutshell. It was such a weird conversation because I was kind of
Yeah.
like
Oh, what's his name? Who mixes Bette Midler?
hmm
Um, what's his name? I haven't seen him in a long time. Um, I can picture what he looks like, but he goes along that same thought process.
yeah. I
Um,
so I so I do it
yeah,
on my snare top. I will invert polarity on that, and I also invert polarity on toms, but it's tricky because I did it once at here in this current pandemic state. I did it once where I did it with all my toms, and then I did it every other time. So if I did it on the first time, I'll do it on the last time, or if I did it on the second time, then
that's interesting.
the first and the last time, I wouldn't do it on, and it gives a different quality to the sound of the drums, in my opinion. But it's definitely to be played around with. Um, or any must-have mic choices. I'll just say it like this. For me, drum wise, give me a 52 or a D6, 901 or a 91 for my kicks. I'll take a beta 57 and a regular 57 for my snare. Toms 604, 609s. Or if I want to get really fancy with it, I'll do like 98s. overheads, KSM 32s, or well, symbols in general, KSM 32s because I've used those before, or at least for overheads, I might do like C414s and maybe one KSM 32, and then vocal mics is just whatever sounds great for the artist. Like I like the sound of a de facto capsule. I like the sound of
Absolutely.
a SCV7. I like the sound of a Telefunken, but it's to be played with. And it's going back to Telefunken. Like I heard like the M80s on like the snares, and those are really really good as well too. So definitely M80 would be one of my choices as well too. Shout out to Telefunken. Like the M80 is like really phenomenal. Like I said, it goes back to when I was doing that one off with Common Kings. Um, my buddy Malcolm, he has he has Telefunkens, so we were using Telefunkens on the kit, and I was listening into the in mix because Common Kings is all ears, like, and side fills, no
Yeah.
downstairs wedges, and so I get a chance to like listen to the way how Telefunken sound, and I like them. I was on S6L. It was really good. So I enjoy like like a good Telefunken package if I could you know if I have it, or if I invest in one. Telefunken package is really good, but
Yeah.
standard package like
Piece mine
604s.
together.
Yeah. What about you? What's mic choices for you?
Um, I'm in flux right now. I'm really in flux right now. I think I'm definitely gonna be rolling with this guy on kick from now on, um, and kind of losing
Mm-hmm.
the old EV one just because it's more open. And
Odd.
I snare I was doing with Gus the M201, and we were talking about this before. The tuning of that is also like on the list of things to change whenever we get back to doing shows again. Um,
Yeah.
but I think I want to either pick up one of those right angle 57s, or I tried an M80,
Mm.
the M80 SH one time. Somebody had it at a venue, and I was like, oh, I'll try that for a day, and didn't care for it on that snare at least. But maybe an M81 SH. Um,
Nice.
what was I saying? Yeah. So the snare bottom, I'm gonna be trying the Beta 181 soon. Again, whenever we get back to it, I got it in my closet and ready to go.
Oh, that's cool. Beta 181.
Maybe on top two, we'll see if I can pick another one up for cheap. Um,
Mm-hmm.
hats KSM 137. I've not been an SM81 fan in a while. Just they have a distortion I don't care for. I don't know if you ever picked that
Ooh.
up. They have like this.
Just a little bit, just a little bit of distortion when you hit the input signal pretty hard, but
Yeah,
you know,
like on hats, they
sleep
have like a
answers.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tom's 904s for me. They have like less compression than 604s. Like the 604s have like this built-in compression kind of thing that on some Toms is really cool.
Uh-huh.
Some it's not. So
See, that's the
take
thing
your
about it
pick.
though. I have yet to physically. I have yet to try the 904s. Somebody introduced me to them. The front of house guy for Joe, the R&B artist, he uses 904s,
Yeah,
and you know, I personally have not tried them yet, but I heard his mix with them, and they're not bad. So
yeah,
definitely 904s is definitely something I would try and
yeah,
invest in. I think they're really cool. Ooh,
yeah.
somebody had a question. Do you guys change channel strips processing or wave presets with different bands slash artists, or fairly keep them the same? Um,
You kind of keep going back to the same
basically,
thing that works for you. It'll be different settings.
mhm,
What works for one guy is not works for another. But definitely my chain for vocals, let's say, is drums. I don't even. I just know unless the only console gate I've ever that doesn't change tonality too much is the profile gate. It's the
mm,
only one that's ever not significantly altered how a drum sounds.
exactly.
So I will, but other than that, is emo D5 is on all of my shells always. Um, kick SSL channel, and then some kind of comp. I was into
Mhm.
the RX for a while, and I
Mm,
still am, but it brings up a lot. Part of the EQ with that it brings up is like this 160 thing, and it swells, and I don't love that.
exactly.
Um, then snare, Shep's Omni channel I've been into really cool. If you guys remember Cooper, I did try out the CLA Mix Hub, and the only part of that that I liked was the like the line driver, like the mic driver thing. The
Mm.
rest of it was sounded like an SSL channel strip for me. Um, the cool
I wanted to
sidechain
get into
things.
I wanted to get into the CLM mix hub, but it's just time and place. Cause like I don't want to. I didn't want to try something I never really
Right.
used on an artist that I wasn't really with at the time. But that's definitely something to look into. For me, I would say it varies because like I have so in my mind, in my thought process when I walk in, I have muscle memory on fundamental things that I will touch, and they kind of go towards most scenarios. Where it varies is more in like genre and
Yeah.
relationship. Like for example, I juggle between R&B, reggae, hip hop, um, rock, and they're all different, tailored genres. Like reggae is more okay, cool. You have a strong kick drum, but the bass really has to drive so
Yeah.
that low end information is solidified. Versus in this other genre, soca, where it's like, okay, cool, your bass is gonna drive, yes, but your kick drum has to be like really thumping, a little just a little bit past the bass, and then it's like you get into that genre specific. But definitely a lot of stuff I do processing wise kind of ends up being the same, and it kind of changes due to acoustics of a room, whether I'm in an open air stage, a theater, and or sorry, an open air stage, a theater, or an amphitheater. Just the acoustics. Is it wood? Is it concrete? Um, is there a lot of reverberation? What are we dealing with at the time of the day? Because that kind of varies. Because you might add like this amount of dB at a certain frequency, and it fits this outdoor stage. But then you go into a hall, and it's like, damn, this thing is like really shooting off at the dB. So you gotta listen to dB, maybe tighten up the gate, and
Yeah.
then
Floor toms definitely. Yeah.
exactly,
Got to watch that ring.
exactly, and it's like it varies. So shit, it varies. So I hit my hand. Sorry.
It's all good. How do
Yeah.
you guys feel about condensers on toms and snares versus dynamics? They have their time and place. It depends on the drummer and, or yeah, like the drum.
Mhm.
Um, you know, yeah.
I mean, that's that's just it. Like
If
it
you
has
like
its
it, you
time and
like it.
place. If you don't, you don't. Like I use a lot more dynamic mics, but I would if you give me a condenser and you say put it on the snare, I'll still do
If
it.
I
I
can
just
get it in the right spot without it getting destroyed, then
which
yeah,
is which is another tricky thing, especially when you're dealing with 98s. Which we all know the way how 98s are designed. Like they're very small in diameter. So it's like you have to position it right, otherwise you start having a drummer who gets kind of wild and they hit that microphone, and then that mic is just gone. Like that head is just gone. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? That's why a lot of people started leaning towards like the 904s and the 604s because they can take powerful beating.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, would you recommend using waves with an XR18?
It's
Yeah,
not even worth
sure.
the hassle,
It's not, but
honestly.
if you want to, you can. I mean,
I
it
think
just
you can
depends on your scenario because
learn
waves.
to use that first. Though I've never used waves with an XR M32.
Um, I personally have never used it. However, I was when I did some work with this Asian company, Sun State Productions. The front of house guy had invested in a multi rack. He said he got it for a good deal at the time, with a Waves bundle,
I think
and
we all got that Tracks Live deal.
I missed out on it, to be honest. I really did. I'm still trying to catch up with the whole
Yeah.
multi rack thing. But it was at
Well,
a
I'm
time
not
when
even.
I
I
was
tried Super Rack and I couldn't even get it to, because it needs a certain resolution. So I installed it on a different computer and had to
uh huh
demo V11 licenses because all my shit is still 9. Um,
basically
and
um
then I still couldn't get it because my computer screen was too small. And then I just closed that computer and threw it somewhere. And I said, I'm going back to multi rack, and you're never gonna drag that out of
basically.
my hands. So that's that.
So with the whole using waves over like the X32 XR18, um you could you could do it two ways. Either you use it with a X32 card. Oh, that's sorry, with a Waves card in your X32. I don't know why I said X32 card. You could use it with a Waves card in your X32, or you could just come off the USB with it, and you have to in the multi-rack you just have to assign it to your buses, and say, okay, this bus will have this or that, or even your inputs, because that's the cool thing about with the multi-rack is that you can go in and say, okay, cool, this has to go to, you could make it to input this and bus this and that, and use it over the USB. Just be
It's a lot
careful with
slower.
late
Yeah.
yeah, be careful with latency issues. Like, don't overkill it. Like, have like at least maybe four core plugins that you will want to use, and stick with it right there. So that kind of comes to my point. If you're gonna use it over X32, in my opinion, bus processing. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Use your regular stuff for your channel strips. Save your waves for your final bus processing, like your drum group, your this and that, and just use it as bus processors. So like your effects group, we're using like the H delay or true verb. Just use them as that, so that way you're not eating up too much latency.
Yeah.
So because
I,
you
I
don't you don't want latency issues.
yeah. I well actually have
Go
2
ahead.
points now
Go ahead.
about that. One of them is now that I've been spending so much time on near fields, it's so easy to like, when you look at the Robert Scoville lab stuff and he's talking about like aligning every input like manually, and it's easy to like wave that up and like, yeah, you don't need to do all that. I don't manually do it, but everything in some way, shape, or form hits multi-rack because it does make a difference.
Exactly. Um.
Um, and if you really listen, like, and even if you're not using waves, but you're like doing in your console, if your console has plugins, like if you're on Yamaha or your little MixWiz or
Mhm.
whatever, I'm making fun of Alan and Heath. Um,
Let's
if
not.
if
Let's not.
even
Let's
if you're
not do the
adding
Alan
like
Heath.
your one of your effects track comps to one bus, you're still adding latency in running it through your bus and adding that plugin. So you
Hmm?
still need to consider it's not exclusive to doing either hardware or waves or UAD inserts. It applies to everything unless it's like an LV1 or an M30. Well, even the M32 does not, or the Pro 2 doesn't fully compensate that. It
Hmm.
does make a difference. It's hard to say. Like sources, definitely. I was playing with those tracks I recorded for Fez the other day, and
Nice.
we're like it's R&B. It's like that rhythm guitar, like it's a jangly guitar. It's following the bass. Like
Hmm.
you won't immediately put your finger on that's what's off. But then if you
Hmm.
make like just run it through empty racks and align them all, that's when you start like, oh yeah, kinda. The other thing is I have been despising any software reverbs recently.
Why is
Except
that?
they all sound like really cluttered and like everything between 500 to 1K and not much of anything else. H reverb, R verb, true verb, the stuff in the Digico, the stuff in the X32 especially,
Hmm.
like and it has just been driving, and I have to like crank the shit out of it to get it to sound like in my return or my send EQ, to just not to be like this cluttered crap. um
Hmm.
and so I bought a TC M3000 recently, and I've been enjoying
Mm,
that. And I am on the
mm,
hunt for a Bricasti M7 to an extent, um, depending on what kind of deal I can get on it. Um, but for me,
well,
I
we gonna touch on console plugins for a minute because I have some cool stories about console
sure
plugins that when I tell people that I just use what was on the console, I've had a couple people look at me like, don't bullshit me,
I
right?
got great mixes with just using what's on the console.
Like for example, the M32 has just like this unique like waveform type plugin that I use on the
Yeah,
drums.
like a transient designer.
hmm And I was using it on my snares because I have a buddy of mine who is the PM slash front of house for this country artist named Dylan Scott, and he was
Oh, Booba.
no, no, he's not Booba. It's another dude named Kyle Wright. He kind of
Oh,
just
he
took up the
took
gigs
over
a while
from
ago.
Booba. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, looks like he's gone. Um, Booba's a great dude. He actually hit me up for that gig. Um, well, told me he had considered me for it, but then yeah. So while Emmanuel finds his way back, I think his internet might have dropped. Yeah, Lexicon does have some great verbs. Um, they're definitely more of like a verb you hear than one that just adds space. If you'd see, oops, back there, that thing under that computer is the TC. Um, and enjoying that. And so the only software verb for me recently that I've been um, not horrified by has been Verb Suite Classics from Slate, which um, yep, it cut out. Standby. Um, so I will stall in the meantime. If anybody has any great questions, pop them in and we'll address them when he gets back. I'm just gonna write back to him real quick and give him a solution here. Um, yeah. So think of some good questions. We're going on almost 2 hours, so we're gonna wrap it up kind of soon. But get those questions in, comments, concerns. Tell me we suck. Tell us that we're great. Whatever. If you're watching and you haven't commented yet, say hello in the comments. Let us know you're out there. Um, let's see. Coming up. Well, I'll tell you what's coming up soon. Um, and the answer to that is I don't know. So I think I'll just keep saying yeah. So put those questions in. If you haven't asked a question yet, doesn't matter if you're a beginner or above me and Emmanuel or Manny. Drop a question in there and we'll try to answer it. Um, with multi-rack, can you use auto tune? Yep. Waves has a thing called Waves Tune Live. Hi, Claire. Um, so yeah, you can auto tune with the Waves Tune Live. It's more of like a pitch corrector than like the T-Pain sound. You can do that, but you can do it. So that TC, do I manually set the latency compensation? With a reverb, I'm not so as concerned about having that impulse, or starting to sound like Robert Scoble here, but I'm not as so concerned about that latency management because it's a time-based effect. So that latency, you kind of can take that into consideration when you're setting your pre-delay time and your verb time. The Antares, no, you can't. It is not a SoundGrid compatible plugin. You can have to do it as an insert. Ooh, there's Emmanuel now. What's going on? It's all good. I'm stalling, and people are telling me I suck and asking good questions. So, all right. Sounds good. All right. Sounds good. So, anyways, I was saying, yeah, the actual auto tune, no, you can't. You'd have to run that as an insert. They really ought to be making a hardware piece for that. I don't know why they're not anymore, because that's the kind of thing that should not be done with an interface and Pro Tools or whatever as it is. Because I've seen that crash. I've seen that crash a bunch of times actually, um, including a show I was mixing, not where it was my auto tune rig, but yeah. Um, So Emmanuel should be popping back in a second. If you have any more questions for him, specifically about the genres he deals with, then definitely pop those in. Here he is. Yeah, he's back.
Yay, power of troubleshooting. I fixed it, guys.
Hell yeah.
I, f- I fixed it. But yeah, we're talking about like plugins.
Tuggins
Yeah, so I was talking
reversed.
about plugins because I picked this up from my buddy Kyle Wright. He's now currently doing Dylan Scott. I think that's PM slash front of house, and he was like system tech at one point for the Blink 182. Like he was like
Rip. Well, that's awkward. So, um, I'll fill in the meantime. Before his friend Kyle, there was a guy, Booba Young. There he is. Hang on. He was back. All good.
trophy. Anyway, I
Yeah,
fixed it.
before Kyle, there was this guy
Mhm.
Booba Young mixing Dylan Scott, who
Mhm.
actually through a different friend had told me that he was looking to step down from the gig. Told me to hit him up and said he had considered me, but I don't live in Nashville, so he didn't hit me up about it. I'm like, dude, I would have done something to make that work. I wanted that gig.
I mean, living in Nashville is like it's so crazy how much stuff goes in and out of Nashville. It's it's one of the touring hubs. Like when you live
Yeah,
in Nashville, like you get a lot of work done, especially on the country music scene. And for me, like when I was doing front of house for Somo, like you know, we started in Nashville because he lives in Dallas, so we all fly to Nashville and rehearse out of Nashville over there at Soundcheck, which is right there
sure.
in that big industrial place where there's like the sound check where you have like the rehearsal spots, and then there's another part of sound check where there's like, okay, cool, that's where you could get the supplies like tour supply. There's a
Yeah,
JH audio a rep behind there, sure ups behind there. So I mean, it's a unique spot, and you can do a lot of shows out of Nashville, like, especially down in like that one area. There's like the top. There's like Top Golf, which has like this cool venue downstairs of Top Golf called the Cohen. Really dope venue. They have a Nexo rig in there with a CL5 in front of the house. And for me, I love Nexo rig. Like the STM Nexo rigs are like amazing, clean, crystal, pristine. Like one of my first shows was on a Nexo rig with my buddy who was on here a while ago, Azim Bailey. Like he uses a lot of like the Nexo stuff with the company that he works with out of St. Martin called Mega Sound, and yeah, Nexo rig is
yeah.
crazy, and it sounds good.
The last venue I was at in Nashville was the Basement East, or what was formerly the Basement East, and is now a pile of wood.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yeah, because of the
yeah,
tornado.
yeah. And I hated that rig. So it was a Meyer something,
Mm,
like their VRX horizontal cop, like their arcs kind of thing. Hated it.
oh.
Um, and I carry a console, so I don't even remember what. I think it was a deal. It was a mix whiz there. So
Mm. Which we were talking about Alan Heath. With I will say this: I only respect this from Alan Heath. For in my personal opinion, is the D Live series and the SQ series. GLD, I have had too many bad experiences with the GLD, and The iLive, oh yeah, the iLive was pretty cool when it was a good console. But I'm I'm loving the D Live, and I'm interested to try
Not
the ad.
into it. Not into it.
Bro, the D Live is a wave though. Like it really sounds really good.
It
Like I've
sounds
used,
good. I just don't like using it.
to each his own,
Yeah.
you know. Because
And
like
look
for
at
me,
that,
like
how we're moving on and not arguing about it. So,
exactly, we are just moving on.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. The Cohen, yeah. Cohen is cool spot. Yeah, great, cool.
Um,
Uh,
but actually, I want to talk about Meyer for a second because I'm in. Do you know? Crap, I love him, and I just talked to him. What the hell's his name? Do you know? Everett Pruitt.
the name sounds
He
familiar.
mixes Charlie Wilson. He's out of Chicago.
Yes,
Amazing dude. Love
that's
him. Love him. Love
that's
him.
that's why the name sounds familiar. Because I did a show with Charlie Wilson as a tech, and we had to get a D5 for monitors, and we ended up getting 12 for him out front of the house. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he does mix songs. That's crazy. I need to hit him up one day.
Yeah, Everett's a
Yeah,
good dude. I've tech from him a bunch of times. He actually came out to visit me in Chicago when we were last out there and hung out for a bit. But
and
I'm
he
with
I,
him. I'm with him in the Meyer is pretty meh camp. Um, never been a huge fan of how they sound. It just don't
um
excite me.
for me,
But
I would say ah, my to me it has its place. I will give it that. I
and its
spend a lot
place
more.
is at the shop and not on my no.
I mean, it's very genre specific. Like it does justice, in my opinion, it does justice to low end in certain genres. But then it's left to be seen. Like going back to like sound check in Nashville, like in the rehearsal room, it's a Maya PA for rehearsal. Like I have
Yeah.
like the what was it called again? It was like 600 HPs
Oh,
with
that's
the
nice.
with, with the UM1Ds, like a 3 aside in the rehearsal space. And I don't know, it's just when I hit it at a certain dB level, I get this, like, to me, I get like this little pristine airy sound to it, but I have to be hitting it at a certain dB level for it to really be
Yeah.
impactful.
I feel like
But
every Meyer rig I've heard, and it's been a while, has this certain like tonality about the super high end, and it
mm,
really bothers me. Um,
okay. I
that's
mean, I
how it is
mean,
for me.
I mean, to me, it's kind of different because, like, for me, like, high end is something that I don't make any joke with. Like, I would shave a good amount of high end that is unnecessary, and um, it's kind of. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna say this very very carefully. I love the sound of. Okay, sorry, somebody was texting me about something. I love the sound of JBL, like the A12s and A8s.
Yeah, that's a great
But
box. We have
but
32
what
of
I
them.
would but what I would say about there's something weird about JBL around like 2K area that
Oh,
I usually end up knocking out, and then somewhere a little bit like in like 8 to 10K I usually take out of 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 the PA myself personally. Like
of which box?
uh predominantly Vertex rigs.
Yeah.
And on occasion when I do get to mix on them, because I don't anymore. I used to. I did it for 5 years. Was like the VRX stuff, but I don't do it. I don't mix on the VRX anymore because, like, it's a fixed angle box at the end of the day. So it has its place, but I just don't mix on it anymore. So, but definitely, high end is something that I don't really play around with, because to me it's very sharp on my ears.
Yeah.
But then to other people, it's like, "Ah, I don't really need it." So like I'm very cautious with how much of it I take out and how much of it I leave in. Because like I've had somebody come to me and like, yo, yeah, the high end kind of feels kind of weird, especially when I'm in like the initial like tuning process, and then I'll
Yeah,
be like, all right, let me give it like a couple dB back, and then be like, okay, cool. And to me, it'll
that's
be like, nah, it's
that's
okay.
part of the Gus sound is like some of that high end stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so especially like, with his synths and his keys and stuff.
Right?
So it's got to be right, maybe their high end is correct, and I'm just used to hearing the crap high end of every other PA. I don't know.
Maybe.
It could be, but the fact of the matter is that it bothers the crap out of me. VTX is a great box. Weirdly we've had so many mixed experiences with them, but because
Yeah,
it's mostly an amp thing.
yeah.
But the box itself is fine. The 25 is a beast to rig, especially if you're at the edge of the deck.
Hmm.
12s and 8s are great. Eights are cool, but they weirdly like we had 8 aside in like a college gym, and it was not enough PA.
Mm.
Different story. Um,
You're talking about when you did a PNB rock, right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
one
yeah.
time. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that rig. Um,
That was opening for AJR actually. Um,
which I'm interested to hear that story about PNB rock because like
I
a lot of people don't really talk about him like that, and I'm
I
kind
don't.
of curious how you came across that PNB rock gig.
I've never, so I don't actually work for him in any capacity. They've all been production company gigs. Like he has a monitor engineer who we know based out of Philly.
Mm,
Um,
I didn't even know he had a monitor engine, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, yeah. So he's got a guy who's a monitor slash PM for him. Good
Mm,
dude. Works for a different company actually.
okay.
Um, and they don't have a front of house guy. So when they come through the college gigs, and they do,
Hmm.
it's me or whoever mixing front of house. So,
Which is crazy because like I think I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I have never, to this day, and I will say it right here, I have never once like traveled with like a strictly a tracker, like just two track. Like everything I've done so far has just been like when you hire me, it's like two piece to 5 piece band, but I've never done a track I had, and it's so crazy like how they are so predominantly like in like the club part of touring, but I just never got an opportunity to tour any.
I know
I don't know why.
Travis Scott was just a DJ and vocal
Yeah.
on like the arena tour. Um, even with Kyle, we still had a DJ, and for Coachella, we had keys as well.
Hmm.
Um, so neither have I really. Done a bunch of track acts, and the way your track, like, dude, if you just rip your own songs off of iTunes, load them into your DJM, whatever the hell it is, and then hit
Yeah.
play, and that's what you give to your live show, I hate you. Sorry, but you're. It's just it sounds like an iTunes mastered show. The arrangement is not right to come through a PA. You need to have track like what I so
Exactly.
admire what they did with the Post. Even though the Post Malone is a track show, it's a different show. They've redone the song, so it's different.
Yeah,
The good thing
because
about
then.
live is that
Hmm.
it should sound like the band and whatever the artist, but not be playing the songs. Like
Mm,
stay home and not spend $150 and get beer spilled on and another 40 to park on. You know, um, so I feel like that's like a disservice to the fans if you just play your crap off of your computer. And also the arrangement's not good. It's not meant for a PA, and it's usually there's too much of that loud hat.
hmm.
Because by the time it's getting through, with big PA that
Hmm.
has some real HF to it, that the hats especially like the rap hat. It's like it's sticking you in the face. Um,
It's cool,
you
but
have
def
like
but definitely you have to do a lot to like just tame it down.
Yeah,
So
like
I do
more
see where
than
you're
I
coming
should
from.
have to, and then I have to take stuff out to make room for the vocal in there because the vocal already exists. Like this Cardi B video, it was like a throwing like last minute thing. I'm pretty sure. So like the vocal was in the track, and I had to like just make all sorts of room uh, for the track for the vocal in there. And it just the track gets ugly, and you start having this like phasiness that you've had to introduce to make it work. Mid side is actually really great for that. If you don't know the wave center, that's actually kind of a cool.
Hmm.
Um, George Thompson, what do you mean Post Malone? If you look up a live show, it's not just it's tracks, but it's not just like it's not the it's not just like
Yeah,
the studio tracks. Like they and
like
other
like
artists
what
have
is
done
it?
this too. Like they've created something for their show,
Exactly.
for a show.
It's called show programming at the end of the day, right? Where
Right.
you take the tracks, and then you make a you get some musicians in, you make an arrangement, Here is your show tracks. This is what you want it to sound like if I didn't have a band. And on the Post Malone thing, like I mean, like I've listened to the show like most people via YouTube, like Reading or Reading Fest, however it's pronounced. Like that was one of the key things about that Post Malone show is that show. And you listen to the original track, and then you listen to that show. You know that there's like extra guitars added for
Yeah,
emphasis. You know that there's extra this added, extra that added. But it's cool because a show a show needs to be a show, and a song
yeah,
needs to be a song. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, right? If you can spend the money and hire somebody to come in and do show programming of that, like a musical director who has, you know, that ear to be able to say, okay, cool. If we put this in this part and move this around, then
yeah,
now that becomes the show. Then you're working really good, and a lot of shows today are like that. Like the amounts of concerts we go to on a daily or weekly basis, they're all like arranged, modified for a set
yeah.
show because
Th-
the
Yeah,
artist is
most of
gonna
the
is
time.
gonna go in and say to himself, I like it as a record. And this is one thing that I've come across recently, especially with like home studio recordings and stuff like that, because I kind of have that setup right now. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have a conversation with an artist who's going in the booth, and they're like, they're talking, and they're like, I want to do this, that, that, and I'll be like, yeah, that's cool, but we can leave it off of like the main record that's going out to Spotify and just save it for like the show, like, because you don't want to give away all the sauce,
yeah,
in a record. And what are people gonna differentiate at the show, as
right.
you just said. You know what I'm saying?
Especially because that's like the main revenue stream now for artists, and
Yeah,
especially there's probably, I hope, going to be a huge boom when we get back from this.
I
Your
am. I
show
think.
should be
I think it will.
special. Like
Hmm.
it shouldn't just be what you hear at home. You know, like to me, like
Exactly.
that's always bothered me. Um, so and if you can't afford a band, okay, so I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, but you know, I feel like what's who is it? Ariana Grande, right? There's
Hmm.
if you the thing about for me about like the programmed drum sound that every record has now, like that 808 drum sound that every pop
Hmm.
record and rap record has now, to me is boring when you turn it up. Like it sounds like it's really cool. It's
Shoot.
really cool, like on your little speakers and stuff. But like the way that's set up and mixed, when you're putting that through a PA, it's not really exciting. Having a great
Exactly.
drummer is exciting.
Exactly. Or if you are like us again, if you have the money to go do it, and you could bring a great drummer in while you've arranged the show and say, hey, give me drum tracks for this arrangement. We'll record it and we'll put it in, and now you have them in the show. Now you have the whole show built, and all the artist has to do is just stick to the track, stick to the way how the
Yeah.
show is built. It's built to it's built around you to be able to break down at this point, start at this point, you talk here, insert yourself there, you
Yep.
end here, right? But again, it's the same thing if you had a band. You start here, you break down here, you end up here. You walk yourself through the way how you want the performance to go. And for me, like, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I love like 808s and stuff like that, but I love when I could hear like a live drum on top of like 808s, because I feel
Yeah.
like that's pretty cool. Like recently, I started to listen to some Alina Baraz, and I was listening to a couple of her live shows on YouTube and stuff like that. Because a buddy of mine, that I have like conversations with, Robert Booker, he does front
Oh,
of house for her.
yeah. I know
and
Rob. Yeah.
And so he kind of put me on to Alina Baraz low key though, because like I think one day he was going through like his tracks with Alina Baraz. I was like, wow, this chick sounds amazing. And I started listening to some of her material. I was like, Wow, that's crazy. And we have conversations about different artists like Alina Baraz and Tinashe, which I remember when Tinashe came to Orlando back when she was coming up in her career. And, it's always cool, and so like I love to hear that, like that them drums or even like live bass on top of like the 808
Yeah.
sound, and it just has this weird feeling. Even listening to like G Easy with like who's just a drummer and a
Yeah.
DJ, just hearing that on top of what his foundation track
Hmm.
is like,
But
Jesus,
also,
it goes.
give me the ability as the engineer to turn down, like break those drum tracks, not like kick snare hat, but give me the drum tracks, because if the drummer is flamming with the 808 and I can't control that and I have to turn all the tracks down, because if the drummer goes away, that would be sound weirder than if,
Exactly.
you know um I just, and I had that thing a bit with Kyle, um where, and do any artist where there's a drum track playing, it's never exactly in time. So having the ability to maybe duck that a little bit or control it separately than the rest of the tracks is always beneficial. I remember the I don't know if he's done shows with band since, but Coachella definitely with Post was a band, and I think it was Wow Jones playing keys.
Mm-hmm.
I forget. I don't know who the rest of the band was, but so there's that. Rob Booker, um, when did I meet Rob Booker? In end of 20, the same show I mixed Post Malone at. And when I met,
Okay, I know what you mean.
do you know DeJuan Parrish?
Nah, I, don't, I
He
mean, there's a list.
mixed SZA, before Ricky and Kyle Hamilton and whoever else is in that circle got that, do the filling with that.
See the thing with that with those people is that now I'm slowly meeting them thanks to the avenue that has been opened by guys like Brandon and also like Chris Owens, who's black monitor engineer. He also does
Yeah,
Ari Lennox as well too. um I applaud them so much because they have given me that opportunity to meet these people, as well as get myself into like the R&B and hip hop door. And me and Chris always have conversations about anything.
yeah.
Like Chris knows at the end of the day, like if he needs me, he got me. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm slowly meeting a lot of those guys. Like, um,
I've met them almost all of them at gigs. I think, like
you
Rob
know who, you know
Booker.
what, you
I teched for Rob Booker
know.
when he was mixing Ty Dolla Sign.
I see. I didn't even know he mixed Tyler. So I know one guy that was mixing Tyler. So his name was Ruben something, because it's some kind of weird Hispanic name. I can't pronounce it right off the top of my head right now currently. And then like you just end up meeting like some of these guys. Like for example, as we talk about our buddy Fez, like through
Yeah,
through Fez, I end up knowing guys like Wesley Copeland, who does Anthony Hamilton and K Michelle, and I end up meeting this one dude. His name is Martin Harris. He does modules for Joe. Like and then even with the Charlie Wilson with Everett, damn it,
Evan
names is
Pruitt.
this Everett
Yeah,
Pruitt, right? And I'm slowly meeting them as we go through the cycles, even down to like this other dude, um guys like Brandon Daniels, who's been doing 50 Cent for like a while now.
he just followed me on Instagram like yesterday.
Yeah, but no,
That's
Brandon Daniels is a very, very, very cool cat. You should really get some conversations going with him.
yeah.
Like
I'll
like
definitely
he's
do that.
like he's like he's very chill. And also this one guy, very, very good guy, Malachi Bristol. He was doing Trippy Red before the pandemic, and then he was Juice WRLD's monitor engineer for a
Oh,
little
I
bit.
know him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Malachi's really good. Like and like I said, I'm slowly like meeting them, and then there's like foundation people that I met while I was out with Somo. So like guys like Anthony Hunter, which who does like, man, Anthony Hunter. He's just he's just that guy. Like, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like he gets his hands in with like a bunch of different people. He works. He does production management for Lauren Hill. He has done like work with Nav. He has done. He did when we did Day in Vegas. He was doing monitors for J Cole, and yeah,
Do you know? Oh God, Arno, what's his name? Horace. I forget his last name, but he mixes front of house for Lauren Hill since like
Oh,
forever.
Horace Woods, the guy
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
thought he talks a lot about the C4 stuff. Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
yeah,
Arno and I did a gig with him. He was cool. He went and got me and him an Arno hamburger. What did he get us? McDonald's or Burger King one time because it was like a blizzard outside and we were stuck in. He's cool.
yeah.
Um, I
And
actually real quick too. I don't know if you saw that Joe Hello did that video for Burl Audio, and everybody is jumping all over his back because he's not the most articulate. Joe is still a good. Whether or not you can explain what you're doing well doesn't really matter. I just want to defend Joe here real quick. As long as he's getting a result that the artist and the production management is happy with, it doesn't matter if he can explain exactly his process and articulate it well or not. So lay off Joe.
yeah, because I mean, even it's something you grow into at the end of the day. Like we, I don't say it for like every engineer on here, right? Like even with myself, right? It's a learning process at the end of the day, right? Whether you can articulate what you do. I sometimes people ask me what I've done, and I say honestly, like I can't even really tell you. I just went off a feeling, and that was that. You know what I'm saying? And until I go back to the file and really analyze what I did, I'll be able to break it down. I still can't tell you. Like you gotta give me some time.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like it's not always it's nice when you can articulate what you did, but if you can't and you just do it, you're not less of a person because of it. Because
right.
for us who are engineers, like we stand in the shadows. We're not in the forefront. We're not doing a ton load of interviews and stuff like that on a regular, like an artist or like a musician, for example. Well, musicians kind of fall in with us because they play like a role in the background unless you're like a very very like high profile musician like a Carlos Santana, for example. But even so, they had to grow into it, and eventually, you grow into it along the way once
Right.
you decide, okay, cool, this is how you want to be seen. And I can't knock Joe Hello because there's been times when, like for example, I think there was an interview where he talked about like Polaris Studio, and he was articulate about that. So I can't
Yeah.
knock him if he
Right.
if this didn't go that way this one time.
Right.
It's
And,
what it is.
and to be honest, it doesn't matter either. Like, there's guys like Pooch and Scobo who are like naturally born. They're great speakers and great teachers. And there's some people who aren't. Like me, I suck at explaining what I'm doing, as you guys have all seen through my videos here.
Same with me. I was fun fact, like I was sitting here like maybe like an hour before we came on. I was like,
What am I
how
gonna
am I
talk
gonna
about?
how am I gonna break this down that I don't sound like an asshole, but I don't sound like I'm stupid, but I don't because somebody's gonna actually hit me with a question that I'm gonna have to look and be like, okay, I kind of see what your point is. But again, it comes from having conversations like this, and not just on a discussion like live like this, but like in general, like you know how it goes. Like me, you talk a lot, like
Yeah.
offsite. Same thing with me and Blair. Like same thing with me and like most people. Like we have conversations in our little bubble, and we discuss things, and then we come up with like cool solutions, and then we try them, and then when people ask, we're like, oh well, we did. Once you remember the formula, it's like, oh well, I did this to get to this, and I stepped in this with this shoe, and put this. It's just things.
I was okay. Maybe it was a few months ago. It feels like it was really recently, but it might have already
Hmm.
been 2 months ago or something. But Blair did call me recently about something. I forget what it was, but I talked it through with him. God, I forget what it was. Um,
Yeah,
and I forget when it was. God, let's go to my phone. When did Blair call me last? Uh,
I mean, even going back with that thing that you were talking about with the Matrix and monitors, like
yeah.
that's been a discussion that me and that you know I've had
Oh,
with with
yeah.
with
2 months ago. Yeah,
with
March.
with, with Blair, we just openly discussed it,
Yeah.
because it would be really cool because we were looking at and again, this is all subject to you try it. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Like we were looking at like how is the quickest way to save face with the number of packs you're using and be able to change a mix instantaneously if you have a musician that's moving around consistently, like make a vocalist hear what the drummer's hearing and then switch by that, and it all goes back into the matrix system, like especially like on the
That was
profile
it. Yeah.
with the whole matrix system is like if I run you through the matrix system, then I could have several of this, and I'm just like on off, on off, on off, and it kind of stemmed from the stuff that he was doing with John Bellion, where if you've ever seen the John Bellion show, it gets really dynamic because John Bellion would start singing, and then he'll walk back to like some percussions, and if I don't think he had a percussionist, but he has like some percussion, and he'll walk back and he'll start like hitting like congos and bongos and all these things during a certain point on a certain song, and you never know what might happen. Like fun story, and I don't know, it was weird.
Yeah. So
Like like just
actually,
like just
oh, sorry.
like just before it was a show that Ricky was doing. This was just before he graduated. I had already graduated already, and he dealt with a weird situation like that where he dealt with an artist that is a multi instrumentalist like her or something like that. He would end up start singing and he'll put jump on the bass and he start playing the bass. Then he'll jump and he'll play like a separate drum kit, separate from the drummers. And just how you deal with those scenarios. And make them work. The matrix system works for that scenario, and it's something that I know for sure a lot of people are going to end up trying if you run into an artist that wants to be able to tell the drummer, hey, come off the drums real quick. I'm gonna go on your drum kit and you're going to take a break. So we can only have one single drum kit
Yeah.
on this thing. It's like how you deal with it. So
I think that's actually so what I think with Blair, what I talked through with Blair is he had like a stage left and a stage right guy that at certain points swapped, but they were on wedges. So
mm-hmm.
I forget what we ended up talking through. I think it was a macro that swapped. I forget it was a macro or a snapshot. Well, no, the macro might have triggered the snapshot
Mm-hmm.
that changed the processing in the inputs and then swapped the mixes to the outputs, and each mix went through a matrix. I think that's how it went.
I mean, that would be a unique situation because if we're talking about a situation like that, like there's only one person that comes into mind who ended up having that situation, and that's Bob Cohen, who's Metallica's
Oh,
monitor
Metallica. Yeah, yeah,
engineer,
yeah.
where he's even said in an interview like if Lars is one way and James is end up over here, then that vocal for Lars is not supposed to be in this mix and stuff like that, and how you switch around with it, and the matrix system makes it that easy to jump around the
Yeah.
mixes. Like you don't have to change the dynamics of the mix; you just change the output.
What does he? What does he
Yeah,
use? A Midas?
yeah. He's a big Pro X user.
Trying to think of how that
Pro
would work on
X.
that.
I mean, it might be the same system. You just have to
Yeah, I know the
create
Matrix.
create quick.
But he's
It's
also.
but it's
I don't know if it's like a macro thing, but
maybe
yeah.
because like the Midas series swapping or creating a quick button like a macro button. I haven't really dived into it, and I've
I don't
done
know if
work
you
on a
can
Pro 2,
exactly.
but it'd be interesting. I'll
Yeah.
play with it one day. So
So I want to wrap this up. We're getting on almost 3 hours now, so
yeah, we've been here for a
stop.
while.
So thank you
Um,
guys for tuning in. Join us on Friday, and keep you guys posted on who next week's guest is going to be. But
yep.
in the meantime, Emmanuel, thanks for coming by. I hope you guys got something out of this. And like, comment,
A-
subscribe, and we will see you next time.
anytime, man. Anytime. And just before we wrap up and leave, I just like to say this to every engineer on this live that's aspiring to, go to some level in their career. Just now is the time during this period where work on your craft and work on your
Absolutely.
skills. And if you have tracks, go at it, experiment. Because when we all go back to some sense of normalcy and some sense of work, like you have to be ready for what is going to happen. Um, get your get your stuff together. You know, for me, it's like I know, like, quote unquote, we're going back to some sense of normalcy. So cleanliness is going to be a bigger issue than what it once was. If it wasn't for most people, you have to get on board with it. You know, so work on you, work on your craft, and let's get past this pandemic and let's just get back out there. All right.